Hey, it is the Sunday show. It is July the 26th, year of our Lord, 2026. I don't know about where you live, but it's bloody freaking hot in my part of the world. I think they're looking at 106 at some point this week, and the heat index will be 5,000 people are going to spontaneously combust. Where is it,
Yikes.
and how is it where you live? Anyway, it's Promise Backlund, one of my favorite people I get a chance to co-host with again. Promise, how you been?
I'm doing well. That heat wave sounds terrible, and I feel really guilty because I'm doing great over here in Finland, where
Rub
I've
it
been
in.
wearing a coat.
Rub it in.
It's been warm the last few days, well, this last week, and there was like a little heat wave a couple weeks ago where it got up to almost 80.
Oh, it's horrible.
And I was just complaining to Arden about like how I'm doing this tonight with no AC, but I think it's like 74 degrees in here or
Oh,
something.
you
Like I'll be
poor
all right.
thing.
So I'm doing well though.
I
How
can't
have you
even
been doing?
walk the dog. Like Linus, one of his
Oh,
favorite things ever. He wants to go on walkies. You want to go on a walk? You want to go on walkies? And he bounces
oh,
around, he yips and barks, and we put his little saddle on his harness, and we get ready to go out. But it gets so freaking hot that the sidewalk will burn the paws, and so I cannot do that. So here's how it happens. I have to scoop him up. And I carry him around the corner of the neighborhood, and there's a tiny shaded area with grass and a little fence and whatnot. And I put him down, and then I look like an idiot because I'm just going, go, just go. And he's desperate to go and like hit the sidewalk and the pavement, the asphalt, and I'm begging him, no, you're gonna hurt yourself. So anyway, it's weird.
oh.
I'm sure I'm a punchline in the neighborhood. Phone lines wide open. We would love to hear from people who believe in a God, multiple gods, spirits, the spiritual, something supernatural. I don't know. I mean, we're interested in engaging you, and I would be interesting to hear. I'd be interested to hear some fresh arguments. We were out at the Ark
Yeah.
Encounter protest a few weeks ago. Promise.
Please tell me about that. I've seen little things here and there, but what happened?
Well, I told Matt a little bit last week, but essentially we were there with the ARC sign for the facility in place within, you know, we could see it. And the ARC Encounter sent their own staffers out, and they had their video cameras. And so while we were protesting genocide and incest park and the insanity and all the stuff that the book of Genesis and the other books of the Bible often sells, they were documenting us, and they just released the video documenting us, and it said something like atheists post intense protest outside of Ark Encounter, and they used the word intense. I want to say it was capitalized, probably because when Noah Illusions was behind the microphone, he took no quarter. He just went hard. I mean, I went hard at the Genesis story, but he went hard at the Ark Encounter for lying to children, etc.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask us, Promise, if it does any good. You know, it's a story. It's it's in the books. Makes the Bible, Christianity makes some people happy. Does it change anything to protest this stuff? And I fielded those questions. I don't know how you would respond. Why would you protest the Book of Genesis Ark story, Promise Backlund?
I mean, I think it's really important to do stuff using Kinham's stuff and hearing from these apologists, and I was taught creationism instead of regular science, and so if I had known that there was pushback, when I was being taken to places like the Ark Encounter, I think that would have uh, helped spark some critical thinking for me early on. So I was just thinking as you were saying this, how cool that they made a video because they're alerting their audience to the fact that there are people that aren't just saying like, yeah, this is totally true what you guys are saying. So I think it's really important to combat anything that's anti-science like that, especially when it's targeting, like Noah was pointing out, children. It's so, so, so dangerous and sad. I think it should be some form of child abuse to teach children something that is so anti-reality that you're setting them up for failure in the real world.
I used to hesitate using the term child
Uh-oh,
abuse,
except
but I
now
don't
I've
hesitate
lost
anymore on that.
Seth.
I think, I think about my own sleepless nights about hell, and I think about all of the correspondence and the calls and the conversations that I've had as an activist with people who have been psychologically just battered with the idea, with the fears of burning alive and screaming forever. And that kind of stuff gets baked into you in ways that go far beyond logic. So even if, in many cases, like you're logically, you know that hell it makes no sense. It makes no logistical or moral sense at all. But it still keeps you up at night. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like here, I know it's crap, but in my gut, I still struggle with it. And I did that for
Right.
18 months, you know? So,
Yeah, I missed the first little portion of what you say, but I'm sure I agreed with it. And I just resolved a tech issue faster than I've ever done that in my entire life. It was like I
oh,
completely lost all
no,
sound
I
and
like the idea.
working.
I don't know what you said, but I'm sure
But
I
I am sure
totally
it
agree
was
with it.
great.
Is the position all people should take when watching a
Absolutely.
show. It's one
To
of
be
them.
fair, when it's my co-host, Seth Andrews, I can assume
Just
a
stop.
lot of times I'm generally going to be,
Just
you're
stop.
generally making sense, or else
Because
I would struggle to host with you.
I
So,
am a relative non-controversial figure. I'm kind of the
what is,
Mr. Rogers of the
yeah, I
movement.
was about to say, what isn't it Mr. Rogers that
Yeah,
they
I'm the
they
Mr.
call you?
Rogers, which is
Yeah.
weird because whenever I am called an intense protester and probably a hater of God and all the things that, and an apologist comes up and he wants to engage, video cameras at the ready. I'm guessing their microphones got ruined in the rain the way mine did because they didn't post either that or they didn't like the way the conversation, 15 minutes with me and the apologist came out. So they just
Yeah.
omitted it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was the same kind of stuff. How would you know genocide is wrong? And,
Oh
oh,
my
well,
gosh.
Jonah in the belly of a whale. Well, you saw a news report where a man lived inside the belly of a fish for several days. That's not implausible. And then he threw abortion at me. And then at the end, he
Of
just came
course.
after me. I know you did not have a covenant relationship with Jesus. I'm begging you now, come back to Christ. He was in full evangelism mode. I think it was Dr. Chrissy Stroop who had at least popularized the line that proselytization is objectification. And I would
Ooh,
add
that's good.
colonization, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I come after you, Promise, and I'm like, you need to change, you need to believe what I believe, you need to do this, I am now trying to colonize you into the Christian faith. And I don't think that's an unfair word. You have
Yeah.
objectified you, and then I've tried to colonize you into a specific religion and faith culture. So,
Mm. Yep.
I don't know.
I like that. I like that saying. That's a good one.
Well, I stole
Uh,
it. Why create mediocrity when you can copy genius? Promise. I do see we have a
That's another good
call.
line. We do have a
Um,
call. And before we take that, I will just point out if you are a theist and you call today, you will get to go to the top of the list. We'll talk to you first, 720-619-2288. But we do have an atheist caller that just wanted to ask us something. Shall we chat with them?
it's Sam. Sam, you are on the line with Seth and Promise. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Welcome to the show. What is on your mind?
Well, I saw y'all were hosting today, and I thought maybe you would both have like a experienced uh, perspective on this. And I wanted to ask for your opinions, for your advice. Um, so I will try to give like a backstory as quick as I can. Um, over the last few years, I've been deconstructing. As a kid growing up into like my 20s, I was raised like really strictly religious until 13. Me and my dad were part of like this home church cult kind of atmosphere, where there were like kind of ritual, what's the word I'm looking for, where they cast demons out of you. um,
Oh
Oh my
yes,
God. Yeah, they did
exorcisms,
some sort of
basically.
exorcisms almost.
yes, basically,
We
like
would,
group
I would have called
exorcism.
it deliverance ministry. So if you're from the
Nice.
more
Yes,
charismatic world,
that is
that might be the
exactly what
term.
it was. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Like deliverance ministry, stuff like that, where like you had to sit in a room and they would call spirits out of you. And if you didn't throw up or do like something that made it look like a demon was coming out of you, like you were hounded even more because you were being rebellious and keeping the spirit and you wanted to be sinful or whatever. Um, so it was kind of like this mix of like, I'd say like Judaism and evangelical fundamentalism kind of all in this weird little ball. Um, so then deconstructing, then coming out of that, been a lot more happy coming out of religion in general. However, my folks are still very, 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 very X100 religious. And they did give me space for a little bit with it when I first started processing and I was like, listen, going to church is kind of triggering for me right now. I'm in therapy. I'd really rather not talk about it. And they were like, okay. And they kind of gave me a grace period, but not that long of one. And now it's come back to sending me prayers and talking about things or asking me why I'm not in church, or, well, if you were going to church, this would be happening, or, well, if you were going to church, blah, 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 or sometimes even sending me books from like the small group that they do. Like they sent me one literally yesterday about discovering your identity in Christ and stuff like that. And this is all like unprompted. And I try to remain respectful because like they're my parents. I do love them. I wouldn't call them abusive by any stretch of the imagination. And I know that they're concerned. Like, I get it. I also had and still deal with like that fear of hell that kind of nags at the back of your mind. And I remember being in high school and pastors being like, your friend is going to be in hell and they're going to look up at you and say, why didn't you warn me? And like having nightmares about that and being overly religious to my friends because of it, which I'm sure they really appreciated. But, and so like, I get it because there are times where mom will get really overly emotional and like start crying about me like losing my faith and stuff, and like for a while I haven't been outright about it because I didn't want it to cause them anxiety, and honestly I could only picture them doubling down and being like, well, we have to get them saved even harder now, type of thing. Or you were raised in it, and what are you doing, but it's kind of coming to that point where I think something is going to break, and it's either going to be me or this relationship. And a lot of the stuff that they say is really hurtful in a lot of times. And I don't really know how to tell them, like, hey, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, but I don't believe anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, uh, so the way I went about it is kind of just saying that, but I had to set a lot of boundaries as well. And I've done this with different family members and different friends where I've basically tried to meet them where they're at. And I've said, look, I understand because I would have felt this way if I believed what you believed. I would have felt a lot of anxiety about it. I would have wanted to say things. But let me encourage you that if you really believe in this God, that you need to give this up to God and trust God to handle me, and you just be there as my family, because that's where I'm allowing you to have relationship with me. But I will not allow X, Y, and Z. And then you get to set the boundaries. You can say, hey, I really don't want you to send any more books. Or you can say, I'll read a book for every book that you'll read that I send you, if you want to have that open dialogue. Or if you want to say, I'll go to church once a year as a family thing. Or if you want to say, I don't ever want you to invite me to church. You're allowed to set what you're comfortable with. And it sounds like you would be able to communicate that in a really kind, warm way, just based on how you're talking now. I don't think you would have a problem with that. But I think if they're the type of family where you still feel like you do want to have connection with them, then you will be able to have an honest conversation in this way. There might be an adjustment period where you have to back up some of your boundaries. I know I had that, where my boundaries were being crossed and I had to say, nope, okay, I already told you guys I wasn't doing the whole like where you're going to pray over me kind of thing. So I'm going to not come over until I feel like we're going to respect this part of the conversation or whatever it is. But I think more than anything, it sounds like you just need some firm boundaries set. And you can decide if that includes also telling them, by the way, I'm an atheist. I don't believe any of this anymore. I don't know that you owe them all of that information, but I also understand if you want them to know that. That's how I felt about it.
I would
guess
refer
it's
you
kind of
to
one
a book by Promise Banklund called Gospel of Lies, which might help you in your journey, Sam. Can I ask you a question? You're
Absolutely.
obviously on their radar as a doubter, right? They're already
Yeah.
saying, uh-oh, and you had to ask for a little bit of space. Can you tell me what that looked like? Was it just, I don't feel like going to church, or did you share more about your sort of doubting and deconstruction with them?
At the time, so this was like a few years ago, because like for a while I just kind of brushed off my childhood experiences as, oh, they were weird, or, wow, what a wacky childhood. And I didn't really deal with them because I didn't think they needed to be dealt with, until I would tell other Christians or other people stuff that would happen in that church, and they were like, the fuck? Like, no, that's not normal. So I started kind of deconstructing and going to therapy because I noticed that I was having a lot of internal, like, fear reactions to things. And so I remember one time I met with my mom and my god sister, and they were asking me, like, are you going back to church? Where are you going? Da 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 da. Because they noticed that I hadn't gone in a while. Even though we go to separate ones, like, they're all kind of like part of, at the time, they were kind of part of a network. So, like, if you didn't go, someone knew, type of thing. So at the time, I asked my mom, I was like, hey, I'm kind of deconstructing or not deconstructing, but like trying to deal with the stuff that happened when I was a kid, now that I realize it for what it was. And being back in that atmosphere is kind of triggering to me. I'm not saying at the time, like I said this, like, I'm not saying I'm never going to go back to church, but I would really appreciate it if you didn't bring it up every time we talked about it, or every time we met up, because it's putting a lot of pressure on me
I
that I
got you.
can't really deal with right now.
Well, at the end of
And
the day, you
she
can't
was,
control how they respond. It sounds like familiar territory to a guy like me. I started to articulate, hey, I've got some doubts, got some questions. Their alarm bells went off. They went into rescue mode. We got to bring the prodigal home. And then they went
yeah,
from, and it came from a sincere place of wanting to rescue the lost, but they really started to do things that were inappropriate. I mean, you are a grown, as the scientific term would be, grown ass adult, okay, is what we are. And sometimes they'll play the mom and dad card. I'm a member of your family. So I get to what? Intrude into your private decision making. I get to force you or push you really hard to make a left or right turn or reverse or do whatever. And what Promise said is interesting about saying, well, if you believe in the power of prayer and you prayed for me and you believe God can genuinely prove himself to me, you're off the hook. I do that all the time. For me, it doesn't work, which I think betrays how little trust they have in their God to do it. They vibrate in their chairs. They cannot help it. I don't have a solution to your problem. All I can say is that your journey is not about them. Your journey is about you. And if they freak out, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's not your fault. And as I like to say, respect starts with self-respect. And you have every right to say, I appreciate your concern, but I am a grown-ass adult. I am taking my journey authentically and honestly. I'm asking the questions I feel need to be asked. If God reveals himself to me, I will be the first to let you know. But I'm not going to let you do or say these types of things. I feel they're inappropriate. And then that way you've drawn the line. And if they cross that line, then if they start to disrespect your wishes, that tells you that there's a bigger boundary problem that they may be forcing you to address. You know, families are tough. We don't want to control what they do, but we can control us. Your journey's about you. I would start there. But self-respect and boundaries, that's huge. And it took me years. I still struggle with it. And it's been since 2007 when I started my journey. You know, it just never goes away. So I don't know. Does that help at all, Sam?
It does, yeah. I guess like that's the main, like, I feel like a lot of our family is based around this, so there's some guilt of like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like shatter the foundation or something, but also like,
Yeah, no, that's
worried
really
that they will
common.
keep.
I
Sorry.
remember thinking that, and I at first I thought I was just being really empathetic to try to be understanding and be careful and not upset them and not make them uncomfortable, because all I kept thinking is I know this is so difficult for them because I know what it's like to think that way. But then
Right,
I realized
exactly.
they're not reciprocating that behavior. They're not worried about how uncomfortable it makes me and how sad I feel for them and how disappointed I am in the choices that they're making when it comes to their values and all of that. And that I can only go so far. So it's good to have empathy. It's good to have understanding in that it, humanizes them for you. But don't forget yourself. I think what Seth is saying is totally on point. You don't owe them your discomfort in order to make sure that they're comfortable. It is your journey. You do get to be yourself in this. And it's not disrespectful to disagree. It's not disrespectful for you to exist as you are. If they take it that way, that is something they need to work out with a professional. And then you get to decide, what kind of boundaries you want to put in there. Sam, we are getting some theist callers that we're going to chat with next. Is there anything
Oh, sure,
else
yeah.
that you wanted to add before we let you go?
No, well, just one question. What was the name of your book again?
It's called Gospel of Lies.
You're welcome, promise. Take a
Thank
commission
you.
check sent to my home
It's
address.
really
Thank you
helping.
very much.
I
Sam, be
think Seth
good. Be
and
safe. Thanks for calling.
Right,
Seth
thank
and
you both.
Matt are
Bye.
like owed a check by somebody that actually has money for all
I
of the
just do
help.
that. Mostly I do it to get a reaction. I know you're proud of, but you're also very modest about the book.
It just
But
makes me feel like, oh shit, now I have to
no.
pretend like I did
I'm a
something.
shill. I shill for all kind of shit that I'm doing, which I will do right now before
Yeah,
we go back to the
please.
phones. By the way, I just came off a massively successful event in Cincinnati with no illusions of the scathing atheist and god awful movies and myself on stage. Full House Cincinnati. It was a ball. I mean, it was so much fun. And the video of the event came out. And so it's going to release to YouTube in a week and a half. So it is, I will eventually release it because I know a lot of
Nice.
folks could not get to Cincinnati, but you are going to see exactly what happened. And it was so much fun. And then August the 29th, Fort Worth, we're reuniting the Unholy Trinity, which was just a tongue-in-cheek idea that I came up with in 2014 with me, Matt Dillahunty, and Aaron Raw. Three brothers from another mother. We're all extremely different, but we get on stage together and somehow it just kind of gelled. So we had a ball. We did a tour in the States. And then the next year we were invited to tour for 2 weeks in Australia. So we took the Unholy Trinity tour down under and we are reuniting. We're going to all be on stage.
Nice.
We're doing our thing. We're going to interact with everybody. We're going to have a whole lot of fun in the same vein. And you are welcome. Unholytrinity.net has tickets.
There's even
We
a
are
website.
60% sold out with about 5 weeks to go. So
That's
don't wait.
incredible.
Get your tickets.
I'm so
Unholytrinity.net.
jealous.
How's that? See, I'll shill for your book,
Good.
but I'm going to take a little personal time and shill for
Good.
my own shit as well.
I'm
Promise.
very jealous of anyone that gets to go to that. I cannot think of a trio that is more different, like each of you to each other. You and Matt, complete opposites. You and Aaron, Aaron and Matt, there's no,
Yeah.
and yet it obviously
Well,
works great
what's funny
together.
too is that Aaron Ra looks like he belongs on an 11th century battlefield with an axe, right?
Kind of
He
acts like he
just
does
looks
too
like the
sometimes.
end of the world. And when we go out to
Uh,
conventions, we'll be in hotel conventions and he's checking in and he's dressed in like some kilt or some leather getup. I've seen him in a pirate hat. He owns it, right?
oh yeah.
And yet, people look at him, especially with the Fu Manchu and all the stuff that he hasn't, and there are believers who think he looks rather devilish.
Mm.
But then he speaks a syllable, and you're like, that is the sweetest,
He is
kindest,
so
happiest
sweet.
dude on the planet, right?
He is the sweetest ever. The last con I was at where he was, I think we were all there, American Atheists, the year before this one. And he was telling me about one of his snakes that he had snuck in that was up in his room, just some massive, I can't remember what it was, a python of some sort. And I was like, oh my gosh, can I see it? And he was like, well, if you want, you want to take a picture with it? And he was so sweet and let me and a couple of others go up to his hotel room where he had this massive snake and was just like the sweetest, most kind person, even while
Eh?
showing
Oh
his
yeah.
really scary
You'll get to, and
animals.
there's just something really boyish about him.
Yeah.
Not to beat it to death, but we were in Australia. We don't know anything about where we are. We're in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. We don't know those cities,
I
and
love
so
this story.
Aaron's there, and he's just wandering around, and he would just disappear. He was so like absorbing of everything that he would lose us. And then the rest of the hour, we'd be like, "Where's Aaron? We have to go track him down." It was like having we next time when we do a tour, we're going to get one of those little toddler chains, the little rubber expandable leashes that you put on children, and we're just going to leash Aaron for the rest of the tour. Looking forward to spending some
Incredible.
time on stage with those guys. I've got. Where do you want to start on this? Promise, which one?
I mean, I'm fine to work our way down the list.
Okay.
I think the first one is one that we've spoken to quite a few times, so maybe it'll be quick. I don't know.
Watcher 215, you're on with Promise and Seth. Are you there?
Greetings, Seth. Hello, Miss Promise. How you guys doing?
Who watches the Watcher? That is the question. What can we do for you today?
Well, I really was just calling in. I usually listen to you guys on Sunday after service, and I've called several times. I've spoken with Promise before, spoken with you before, Seth. When I was in Tulsa between, was it 2000 and 2011, I worked for a nonprofit out there. So whenever I hear your voice, of course, I respect you as a broadcaster. You were, like I said before, like my background soundtrack when I was spending my time in Tulsa. So you bring back good memories for me
You're
whenever
very
I see
kind.
you or hear your
Except
voice.
I wasn't on the air in
Yeah.
2011, but maybe I was being played,
Uh-huh.
maybe reruns. But
Yeah.
let's not hang up there. What
Yeah.
can we do for you? You have a comment or question?
Well, I mean, I'm a theist. I think
Yeah, it says
all of reality testifies. Go ahead.
it says here that you want to defend that God is real. So can we go with that?
Yeah. So reality itself, for me,
Let's start with which
is
God?
the evidence. The God who sent Christ into the world as a witness and as a light unto the world.
Would you consider that to be the God of the Bible?
Yeah, that's where you find that story.
Got it.
Gospel.
Okay, so
It's
you
funny.
believe that the
I
God
just
of the
heard.
Bible
I just
is
heard
real?
I just heard. Of course, yeah. I just heard that you have a book out. I was listening, that's coming out called The Gospel of Lies. That's the title of your book. That's a very provocative title.
It's called Gospel of Lies. There's not the, but I wasn't quite that provocative. But yes, but I do want to stick to, I think I remember some of our conversations. Let's stick to actually the conversation, the topic. Everybody's heard enough about my book. You're welcome to read it and email me about it. But let's talk about this. So
I'm bringing it up on purpose in a half an hour just to tweak
Great.
it. Come on. I mean, you go to church and then what? You just sit around and listen to atheist shows? I mean, what's that about?
Oh, well, currently I just returned. I was on medical leave, so I returned back to work, and I'm working on the weekends now. So do home health care.
And you are motivated to call
right
us
now
because God is real and you want to defend that God is real. The God we're speaking of is the God of Christianity, the God of the Christian Bible. Tell us why that God is real.
Yes, that's what I want to know.
Why is he real? That's an interesting question. Why is that God real?
It is an interesting question.
Yeah, like, why is that God real? Because if he's the only God, so that would be the reason why he's real.
No,
how do you know? How do you know that this God is real? Let's go there if we're going to Jordan Peterson this thing. How do you know that this God is real?
Jordan
Because
Peterson is a verb. I like that.
I live in reality. That's how I know this God is real.
It's going to go nowhere, promise.
Yeah. Watcher, do you think that I should believe this God exists?
Yes.
Do you think other people listening should believe that this God exists?
Yes.
Okay, convince us that this God exists.
Is that the purpose of this show, to convince you that this God exists?
You have been calling in and watching this, so I know that you know how this goes. And if you are just here wasting our time, we have other theists on the line. So we can either have this conversation or we can decide that today's not the day. That's fine too.
No, I wanted an answer to that question. Is that why this show exists?
So we ask the questions. That's how this goes. The whole reason that myself and Seth are here on the screen is so that there's somebody here to ask the questions. We're basically facilitating a conversation. You have a whole audience that's watching. If the call is interesting enough, it'll be turned into a clip that there could be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more people that get to see it. Let's get to the conversation so that there's something for people to hear. And if you think that a God is real and you have good reason for other people to believe that that God is real, we're ready to hear your reasons.
So in him we live and move and have our being. We live in reality because we live in reality. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm done with him.
Yeah,
I'd like to move on.
Why
is that okay?
Why is that?
We'll find some other calls. Is that all right with you?
I can't ask
It's hilarious.
All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. It just literally is, I call it a swirling eddy. You just go around and round and round. Please prove your claim. I will do so by making another claim.
What an interesting question.
Over and over. And then I'm like, well, it is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Let's see what Alexis has to say. Alexis, you are on with Promise and Seth. Welcome to the show. Are you there?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. What's going on? What's on your mind?
Well, I've been struggling for a while with my faith, and I know that's something that some of you've had experiences with. If I recall, Promise has talked a lot about the deconstruction journey. And
she wrote about it in her book. I'm sorry. I'll stop. I promise
sorry,
I'll stop.
Alexis.
The horse is dead. I'll stop it. No, Alexis, go ahead. Can I tell you what faith you were struggling with? Was it Christianity or something else?
Christianity.
Okay. All right.
And
what were you struggling with?
Basically, it's I was raised Catholic, but not really strongly, and went through a period in my teens and 20s of not really being sure one way or the other. And then when I was 20 years old, I had a experience that I can only really describe by saying that it was a single moment of being absolutely certain of the existence of God, like as if I felt the divine presence. And ever since then, I've not known what to do with that. I've not been sure, like, was that experience real? Is it something that was just a hallucination? And it's been something that I've struggled with ever since. And I watch a lot of stuff on the line and similar things, and there's so many, so many solid arguments against the existence of God that I can't reconcile with my experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think, I don't want to misquote you, but I think you said something about like the only thing you could come up with was that it must have been an experience from a god. But then you went on to say maybe it was an hallucination. So you already did come up with a natural explanation. So the way that I've looked at my past experiences, mystical experiences, most of them I have ended up finding answers to. Like, oh, that was, of course I felt that way because of this, this, and this. There are a few things that I look back and they're either something I can't explain. Most of them, though, I'm just like, I barely even know if that's an actual memory anymore. Am I just retelling a story that I told at one point because I tried to find meaning in an experience that wasn't actually that meaningful? And so I think if you have natural explanations for something, then that's already pointing away from it being a supernatural one. And the most that you have is an experience that you can't explain. And I think that's very human. There's so many things we can't explain. And maybe someday you will, or maybe someday you'll just be like, oh, that must have been this. That's what it was. Now I remembered the rest of the story or whatever it is. But what I also keep in mind is if that one experience is how a God chose to encounter you and show up in the world, and it's a way that you're sitting here still confused about, that's really not helpful or anything reliable at all. So to me, that's not worth holding on or holding on to or putting much weight on.
Okay. Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. Would you mind if I ask, you said that you had some experiences that you questioned later. Would you mind if I ask, like, anything about those?
Yeah, I mean, they're so abstract, it would be kind of hard to tell a real story if I'm trying to be as honest in my communication of them as possible. It's things like dreams, things like when I was a kid, where I thought, for example, one of the ones I would tell people this story that a goat walked into my room and was chewing on my hair. Looking back, I am pretty sure that was a dream I had. I fell asleep and didn't realize it as a kid, and then I retold it as like this demonic experience that I had. Lots of things like that, things like a ball of light rolling into the room, uh, sensations, feelings, emotions, all of that. What I don't have is, an example of me praying over a friend who's missing a limb and it grows back. And to this day, they have that limb that grew back. I don't have any concrete evidence of any supernatural experience. I have things that are kind of foggy that I can't really explain, that I don't know, or incredible coincidences. I'm thinking of this person for the first time in 5 years and they call me 2 minutes later. I can still say that that was a coincidence because I have no reason to believe otherwise. And if there's a natural explanation for it, I'm not going to leap to an unproven explanation.
Alexis, I think a lot of this speaks to priming. When I was being brought up in the faith, my pattern-seeking brain would link everything to God. If I saw a beautiful sunset, wow, look at the day that God has made. If I had a chance encounter like the one Promise had just mentioned, I was like, oh, God brought that person into my life at this time for some reason. I wonder what that is. If I happen to pray for something 20 times, 19 times, it went nowhere. But on the 20th time, I saw a resolution that felt like agency. That was God. I think a lot of it has to do with how we are primed to observe and see the world. There's certainly a desire to believe. I think there's a therapeutic element. We feel better if someone's in control. We like the idea of order in the chaos. But it's a fair question. If there is a benevolent God, certainly the Christian God, I had an experience that I'm not really sure, it's kind of vague, but I can't explain it. That kind of thing to me really falls short of the mark. I think a truly benevolent, omnipotent God would have made himself itself clear beyond any question, beyond any doubt. And I'll say one more thing to you in your journey. When I was a believer, doubt was a sin. Right? Who's the one disciple our families told us never to be like, right? They always said, be like Paul, be like Peter, be like John, but they never said be like Thomas. Thomas was the one who was like, hey, Jesus, show me the nail holes, or else I'm not going to buy that you're the risen Jesus, right? The Bible says the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. So doubt is weakness. It's an attack of the devil, or it's just an outright sin in the Christian faith. But if you look at doubt, it is one of the biggest, most beneficial protective mechanisms that you and I have in the world. Somebody shows up at your front door. You don't know who they are, and they're selling some product that seems super sketchy, and all they need is your credit card number. Your doubt of that person may, I just need to come in and use your phone or something, Your doubt may keep you physically safe. If you get a call from someone wanting to renew your subscription with Google, they just want your bank account info. Your doubt might keep you from getting scammed. If you have doubts about a life decision because there are some things that give you a problem, your doubt might keep you from making a bad choice. I think doubt is an amazing tool. Who was it who said, was it Thoreau, who said, if you were to be a real seeker after truth, it is necessary to doubt as far as possible all things. And this applies to God's and supernatural claims. So if you feel doubt, I want you to sort of flip the script on that and say, this is a tool. My doubt might actually be helping me to, as Ingersoll said, destroy the false to make room for the true. And I think doubt isn't a weakness. I think acknowledging it and exploring it just might be a strength. Does that help at all, Alexis?
Yeah, that does. That does make sense. I still do end up in a situation where, like I go to church fairly regularly, but sometimes don't really know why I bother, because like I don't feel anything. Like I don't really connect with the lessons that they're teaching, anything else like that. And I keep going, I think, hoping that I will find some connection, and it hasn't happened yet.
Well, what does that tell you? I mean, I understand a lot of people I know who are non-believers or doubters, they enjoy the community of church. They miss being around the people. Maybe they miss the music or the food or some other aspect, a very human aspect. I don't knock them for going to church on Sunday or Wednesday. But ask yourself, what am I giving into it? What am I getting out of it? And if you get to the point where the cost benefit's not worth it, try skipping a Sunday and then maybe 2 Sundays and see how you're doing. Or maybe find if there are other ways to connect with human beings that are fulfilling to you that don't have all the baggage. And I don't know what that looks like in your part of the world, but a lot of the best stuff that church does is just human stuff. And I think that's the stuff that people usually miss, the person to person human connection, sharing of things together. So, skip once in a while, give yourself a break, see how it feels. Okay.
Yeah, I do skip. I skipped today. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And what do you miss out? What do you feel like you lost out on something?
Talking to the people and, the free coffee.
Being a part of
far as-
community, being with
Yeah.
people, all this human stuff. It's all human stuff. And these models exist in ways that don't have all the religious baggage and don't have the anti-science mythology and don't have the shame and the guilt and the worthlessness and the hell theology and all of that backstory. There are ways to find connection with human beings. We in the secular movement do struggle sometimes with community because we bought into the lie that everything we do in a group looks like religion, which is bullshit. But I think recognizing these are just human things. When you go, enjoy those things, but recognize them for what they are. And know that if you decide to find it without a religious backdrop, there are other options out there here and there. You have to keep your eyes open for that. I don't know, Promise, I feel like I'm monopolizing. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's great. Alexis, I would just encourage you to go give everything we said here a little bit more thought and also come up with some of your own questions. Kind of question yourself. Take some of the doubt and turn it towards your own interpretation of events and see if it sparks any new ideas or new thoughts.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Hey, doubt good, doubt helpful. All right. Doubt is not the enemy.
And
I don't care what religion
check
says.
out-
All right.
Yes.
So take that bug, make it a feature. All right, Alexis?
And Seth, if I could just say one thing, please, for the love of God or the love of whatever, never do a show with you and Paul, because you both have this like absolute death stare, and I don't think I would survive both of you on screen at the same time.
My death stare. I do tend to focus on the lens when I'm listening. Some people say that
Yeah.
it looks like their screens are frozen or that I am trying to hypnotize them. So, you know what? Now I got to do
Hilarious.
it. If Paul and I end up on the show together, we're literally going to lock in
Yeah.
and you're going to have to
Just have a staring contest.
you're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to adapt, improvise, overcome. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but that's awesome. Alexis, be safe out there. Okay.
Thanks, you too.
Somebody said that in the chat once. They're like, has Seth's screen frozen? And apparently I was just like,
You were just locked in.
I was just locked in like this. I don't know if I was even blinking.
I hate to tell you this, when I logged in earlier before the show started, it was just a frozen image of you. And it took me asking Arden, is Seth frozen or can I just not hear? And she was like,
Stop. Do I
oh,
really
Seth
do
is
that?
logged out and restarting his entire. And I was just like, oh, okay. Because you can get locked in. It's great. It's
Well, what I don't
a great
want
feature.
is I do find my eyes wandering a little bit. I'm trying to follow the chat. And for some reason, there were two live chat screens going on at the same time. And I don't know what that means. And I think I'm looking at the right one. And then I look over here and here's the switchboard. So I want to see who's coming up next. And then there's a monitor with you and me on it. But I feel like, well, now I'm always looking away. So sometimes I overcompensate and I want to look
And you really,
right there.
yes.
And then I apparently am creeping people out. So I apologize for the serial killer vibe. This was not my intention.
Incredible.
You want to talk to Jesse? Let's go
I
to the
really
phones. I want to say this is Ohio. Jesse, welcome to the show with Promise and Seth. You are live. What's up?
Hi there. Nothing. What's going on with you guys?
Well, it
We
says
are
here we're going to hell.
Staring at the screen, waiting.
Yeah. I'm eager to hear
Well, if you live a life
I'm eager to hear why we should believe that we're going to hell.
Well, you live a life separated from God in a fallen state, and when you pass, if you don't accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, you will continue into that separation of God. Now,
How do you know that's
necessarily
true?
tell you
How do you know that any of that is true?
the Bible,
How do you know that the Bible's true?
faith, I suppose.
Faith, what's that mean?
Belief in something that you necessarily can't put your hands on or see with your eyes or smell with your nose.
Or proof.
Like I have faith that a gallon of gasoline smells like gasoline, even though my nose isn't right up to it.
Okay, so we're
I have
using faith
faith-
very differently then, because I don't have faith that gasoline is going to smell like gasoline. I have experience that tells me that it does. However, also I can be wrong because I've had I've been sick before to where I couldn't smell anything. And in that case, it didn't matter that I thought the gasoline was going to smell like gasoline. Nothing smelled like anything. So we're using faith very differently here. So I think
Hang on.
Jesse, I'm in the middle of talking. So I don't think we need to know about faith anymore because we've already decided that word is kind of meaningless. It sounds like you do believe you have a good reason for thinking that God is real. Can you share with us?
You have faith that faith isn't real?
Are you getting that echo, Seth?
I am. I don't know where it's coming from.
Arden, I'm not sure if that's
Do
on
you have
our end,
faith?
but the caller's
You have
echoing
faith in what you just said
pretty
is
bad.
true?
Now it's gone.
Now we go. Okay, sorry, Jesse, we had a tech issue. What did you just say?
I asked if you have faith in what you just said is true.
No, I don't have faith in it at all. I don't.
So how do you know
We're
it's
not
true?
using the word faith anymore because you already showed that it doesn't have meaning because you just used it in a way that is
Well, no, you said faith doesn't have
nonsensical.
meaning.
Hang on.
It definitely has meaning.
So
Hang on,
Jesse,
Jess. It's also a false premise because we know that gasoline is comprised of various elements that produce a specific smell that is received by the human olfactory system and perceived in common ways. This is not us taking it on faith. This is actually, that has an actual chemical explanation, biological explanation. The two are totally unrelated.
So are you saying that because the sun came up yesterday and today it will for sure come up tomorrow?
No.
Jesse,
I am saying
That's
though.
exactly what you said, though.
I'm talking about gasoline. You jumped to the sun, but fine, I'll take that chasm-sized leap, and I will say this:
I said
our understanding of the
what did I say
cosmos,
about gasoline?
our understanding,
Jesse, stop
What did I say about
interrupting.
gasoline?
our understanding of the cosmos,
Well, I mean, you interrupted
our understanding of the orbit of the Earth around the sun, our understanding of 4.3 billion years of having an Earth and 13 billion, almost 14 billion years of having a universe, and how these things operate. Can I tell you 1,000,000% that the sun will rise tomorrow? No, but I wouldn't bet against it because we understand the mechanisms that are in place in regard to the sun rising or the Earth rotating around the sun. This is not the same thing as faith.
0.3 billion. How do you know the Earth is 4.3 billion years old?
Jesse, real quick, I'm going to stop you because you keep interrupting us. I just had you muted that whole time, and when I unmuted you, you were still talking. So you're not listening. We're here to have a conversation with you. We will let you talk plenty if you stop interrupting. If you continue interrupting, I am happy to move on to another caller who will be respectful enough to listen to us and allow us to do our job as the hosts. You also keep replying to our questions with more questions, and it makes me feel like you just called in to throw up a bunch of apologist bullshit instead of engaging honestly and giving us your reasons for belief. Let's stop this whole, how do you know the Earth is this? How do you know that? I'm still talking. Let's not do the whole thing where you start asserting all these things that you think we believe. You have no idea what we believe, and we have an audience of of thousands of people that all believe different things. So I would rather hear what you believe and, more importantly, why you believe it and why we should believe it as well. So you believe that a God exists. I would love to hear why you believe that a God exists.
Well, Jesus Christ is one part of the Trinity of God that I believe in. And I guess my question would be to you, are you saying Jesus Christ wasn't
you're not
a
asking
person
us any
that walked
questions,
the earth?
Jesse. Jesse, you're not here to ask us questions. You're here to answer questions. So can you tell me why I should believe that a God... Jesse, you can't know what I'm going to say if you're talking in the middle of my sentences. So the question is, how do you know that a God exists?
Well, Jesus Christ is well documented.
Who documented Jesus Christ? What contemporary, and how do we know that?
Rome did. India did.
Rome, the entire city documented Jesus. I missed that literature. Where have I been? It must have been because I was zombie staring into the camera lens and was oblivious to Rome documenting Jesus. Which specific contemporary historian proved Jesus, documented Jesus?
Are you saying that Jesus was not a person that walked the earth?
Jesse, if you reply with the question again, I'll just mute you. Here's the issue. You called in to say that you think a God exists. We're asking you questions to help you share with everyone. So please answer Seth's question.
What's the question? Who documented that Jesus existed?
What contemporary documented that there was an actual Christ? And that is a reliable documentation.
And I'm going to add on to that. Who documented that Jesus was divine? Because I don't care if Jesus existed or not. I'll give you that. I think maybe Jesus existed. I care if Jesus was a God. So where is the documentation proving that Jesus was a God? We got to go all the way there.
Here comes a claim.
So you're asking for a list of all the witnesses that saw Jesus perform his miracles?
No, I'm asking for a credible documentarian contemporary to the times that we can lean on to determine that there was or likely was a Christ?
Well,
Because
that's why
I don't see any of that. In fact, one of my favorite Jesus stories is when the crucifixion took place and the graves of the saints all ripped open, and then they all eventually stood up out of their graves, and the saints, undead rising to live again, marched the streets of Jerusalem. And not one contemporary historian thought that was notable enough to write down. This is essentially what it's like with Jesus mythology. So tell me, if it's historically overwhelmingly documented, give me one historian contemporary to Jesus.
Sure. Julius Sextus Africanus, he wrote about the crucifixion darkness, and he also wrote about Jesus Christ. So my question
Was he a
for you now would
contemporary of
be,
Jesus?
were you saying, well, Matthew obviously wrote down about Jesus, John,
No.
Paul,
No.
Luke?
No, he didn't.
Oh, they
No.
weren't
That's
historians? They didn't write anything
the
down?
authors of the Gospels are anonymous.
Okay, hang on. I just looked up
Well, the
Sextus
authors of the
Julius
Gospel are anonymous,
Africanus,
but
born at
Matthew
180 AD. So now
well documented.
we are almost 200 years after the alleged birth of the Christ child. So I doubt he was chronicling that, since he wasn't, in fact, alive.
Matthew wasn't alive? Matthew wasn't alive?
We have no documentation that proves there was a Matthew in the book of Matthew, not written by Matthew. It was written in the third person.
Matthew was a Jewish tax collector in Rome. He collected
Prove that.
taxes on the Jews. He's documented in Rome. You want me to pull up the exact
Who
person
documented him?
who
The guy who was born in
documented with
200 CE, Sextus
Did-
Julius Africanus? Your track record is not great. Do not make me give you the demon stare.
Are you making the claim that Rome didn't document their tax collectors?
Jesse, you called in to make claims, and now you have gotten so far off track that you're having to defend authors, best friends, little sisters, teacup collector, because you can't actually answer our question and provide evidence for the existence of a God. We don't even need to get to Jesus. Just provide evidence that a God exists. Just provide evidence that a God exists. That would be excellent information. That's what I would need to hear.
Well, Jesus Christ is one part of the God that exists. And
okay,
let's get
to the other two parts. Let's talk about his daddy. Do you have any evidence of him existing?
Well, if Jesus Christ existed and you accept that he is God, then he said the Father
I don't
exists
accept
also.
that. I don't accept that any divine figure named Jesus Christ ever existed. So let's talk about the other guy instead, because I would think there would be some kind of evidence.
Jesus Christ, Jesse. I need you to stop shitting things out of your word hole for about 30 seconds. So that we can properly respond and set things up.
I mean, you're so smart, and you said Jesus wasn't a real person.
I'm not very smart at all, Jesse. I was homeschooled using a Christian curriculum. It doesn't take a lot of smarts to sit and ask questions. I'm asking questions, Jesse. I have not made any claims or assertions. I haven't told you what I think. This is the time for you to step up and offer actual evidence for the existence of a God. We're not even making you get down to exactly which God yet. Just evidence of any God.
And laughing at us and saying, haha, I can't believe somebody doesn't believe Jesus exists. It's not evidence that there was a Christ.
Evidence? Do you want physical
evidence? What other kind would there be?
Exists?
Yes, I would like physical evidence proving that Christ existed.
Something? Can you logically prove something without physical evidence?
I'd love to hear you try. Please go ahead.
I just asked the question. Can you answer it?
Nope, I'm not answering any questions, Jesse. I'm asking the questions. That's my job on here.
He made a claim that you must have physical evidence to prove something, and I just asked if you can logically prove something without physical evidence. So what's your answer to that?
Jesse, we're not answering your questions until you answer a single one of ours.
The question. If we are looking
he's trying to avoid answering anything himself.
If we're looking at an evidentiary chain, why would this be a problem with the apparent most obvious being in the universe? And people who didn't exist wrote about him, and a guy who was born in CE 200 apparently made reference to him. We're not doing too great. So I'm going to give you one more bite at the apple.
And then I have a personal thing to talk to you about.
Question first, though, or no?
No, we're not, because we're actually in charge here. So what Seth said is important. But question, Jesse, Jesse, chat is letting me know. What did you just say about me a minute ago? You said I'm a beautiful what?
Can you prove something logically?
Jesse, answer me or I'm hanging up. What did you say about me earlier? You said
I
I'm
mean,
a
you
beautiful
can hang
what?
up, but that only means you're wrong.
I'm a
That
beautiful
you're a
what?
beautiful
Go
trans
ahead.
woman.
Jesse,
That
a
you're a
beautiful
beautiful
what?
trans woman.
This
Trans
is why
woman. Are
you
you not a
guys,
trans woman?
this is why you guys are laughable. This is why you guys are so laughable, because you go around, first of all,
What's
you
so
call in
funny
to
about
prove,
saying you're a beautiful
I'm going to
trans
mute you real
woman?
quick. You call in. There's nothing funny about trans women. It's you that's absolutely hilarious. And I'm so glad that you just outed yourself in this way. You call in to prove you're God. You can't do it. You flounder so hard that then you turn to what you think is going to be some kind of gotcha, saying that I'm a beautiful trans woman, because you guys all think that you can always tell. Oh, we can always tell if someone's trans. The only reason I'm clarifying this is to point out how bad you guys are at being able to tell. I'm not actually trans. That is not a negative or positive thing. That's just a fact about me. But you thought that you were going to be able to turn it into something because you cannot defend your position of a god. And once again, you guys are blaming trans people. It is absolutely laughable. It's clown behavior. I will unmute you to let you talk to Seth, but you have shown that you are not interested in any kind of actual honest engagement with me. So maybe Seth can get you to answer a question. If you don't answer Seth's questions, I'm done. Do you want to ask him a question?
I'll unmute him for 10 seconds, but
Sure.
it's not going to help. All right, go ahead.
So, Seth, can you answer my question or no?
Can I prove something without evidence?
Can you prove something logically without physical evidence?
I think I would need evidence. It's like almost like using mathematics to be able to determine the answer to an equation. Sometimes these things exist more in the abstract, but I'm still looking at data points that must or must not work. And I want to know how you know Jesus existed, Jesus the Christ, the God man. And so far, all you've done is chortle and quote people who have nothing to do with contemporary historians in the first century.
If you can prove something. I ask if you can prove something.
You need, I think, to carry around a house plant, or perhaps you should plant a tree to help replace the oxygen that you have wasted on this show for the past 10 minutes. Call it an apology to the species for sucking up so much oxygen. It's really rather rude. If you're going to dial in, preparation and good faith, probably two things you might want to work on. But I'm sorry, they make a claim and then they make another claim and then they come after us. And all you and I are saying is the easiest question in the universe.
We're asking questions.
Right?
And even if we weren't making any sense, even if we say something dumb or whatever on here, there are other people watching the show, and I don't understand why callers won't understand that and just engage honestly, offer up some kind of answer. Jesse should be so deeply embarrassed for many reasons, but especially because he absolutely, utterly failed to answer anything that we asked and then had to resort to whatever weird transphobic place he was about to go while still continuing to be wrong.
Very childish, sort of embryonic attention-seeking behavior. And I think when someone betrays not just a lack of good faith, but a lack of emotional intelligence and maturity in that way, it really, they become a self-canceling noise. And so I have absolutely no problem hanging up on that call. You were done first. I was done second. We got better shit to do. You can go and babble to the mirror, knock yourself out. You know, you can theologically masturbate until you are red in the face. I just don't want to see it, if that's okay. So
I am so with you. If you're a theist and you're listening and you're embarrassed about that call and you think you have a more honest way to engage, we would love to have that conversation. We can have we've had conversations with theists that have ended with us, you know, still not agreeing, but they went well, as in we had an honest dialogue, honest back and forth, and ended it up there. So if you're a theist hearing this and you would like to call in and have an actual conversation with us, answer our questions, share with the group, because there are more people listening than just us two, you can call 720-619-2288. But I do think we have other people on the line still.
Yeah, okay. Why do you hate God? We didn't hear that one. I'm a little disappointed. Or you just want to sin. I've heard those two from believers when they get
Oh,
indignant.
yes.
It's
Those are in my
Daniel.
book,
Daniel, you
actually.
with Promise and Seth, are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Welcome. What's on your mind?
Thank you. Hey, yeah, it's I'm a first-time caller. Thanks for taking my call. First off, I've got a unique situation. First off, I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian all my life, and I've got a cousin that I love a lot, and I hadn't seen him for probably 20 or 30 years. I've got him. I mean, he's sitting here with me, but he ended up going through a tough time, and I went and we picked him up and brought him here, but he's completely atheist. And we're trying to, I guess the right word might be coexist. I'm just wondering, I'm not pushing. I am a Christian and I will answer questions, but I'm seeking some advice actually with this call. Like I said, I'm a first-time caller. Maybe you can help me, maybe not. But do you have any comment or any advice or anything for me?
What's the problem? Why can't you coexist?
Well, it just seems to be we can go on and talk about just about everything else, but when that comes up, it kind of becomes an argument to the point where we have to just step back and just step back and say, hey, no matter what, we're still cousins. We're just trying to get through the disbelief, and it causes friction. So I guess that maybe that's the answer to your question.
Are you trying to convince them, or are they trying to convince you, or both? What's the reason for a heated engagement?
I'd say both.
Okay, well, if you know that I like the idea that a conversation like this can exist when it's possible. But if you've already demonstrated that it's not, and it only produces conflict, and it's better to share the other things that you have in common because it makes life better, sounds to me like you solved your own problem, doesn't it?
Well, in a sense, but we're trying to find some common ground, even politically and all kinds of stuff we're trying to find. We don't have a whole lot of common ground.
If there is something that speaks to our values more than a religion, I think it's politics, right? Everything's political. Our views of the world, how the government works, what our rights are as human beings, who should be protected, who should be accepted and rejected, our educational system, our prison system, the death penalty, the legalization of drugs, the nature of society. Everything's political. So if religion and politics, if you're saying we can't speak politically, that's no surprise, because if there's one thing more polarizing than conversations about religion, it's politics. So if you're just going to go into the red zone and everything else becomes agitated, is it worth it to have a relationship? And if that's the case, can you partition those off and focus on other stuff that you do have in common? Because if you can't be in the same space, that's probably a question of values, maybe. There's a lot going on that I can't speak to. Promise, you got anything that I've missed?
No, I agree. I think I don't, without knowing the exact differences, to me, just from as an outsider, I would just say if these are things that are conversation stoppers, maybe put boundaries around discussing these things if you have to be around each other. And if you don't have other things in common and some significant shared values, then why are you continuing to spend time together, I guess would be my next thing. And if it's causing conflict. If you want to be the peacemaker here, then you could be the one to just sit back and ask questions and approach it with curiosity. And that might be a way to bring some calmness to the situation, if that's your goal. If you just want to be able to, as you say, coexist, then I would approach it with more curiosity instead of reactions.
I agree. That's a very good point. That's a
What
great
drives you
point.
the most crazy?
And
What when you're speaking,
I
what
mean,
sets you off?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
When you're there, give me one of the things that sets you off. You're having a good conversation and something comes up, political, religious, whatever, and then you feel your blood start to boil. Give me an example.
You know, you know, the political aspect of it is a huge aspect. I mean, that's
Give
kind
me
of
an
like
example of
a
something
trigger.
political that is said that sends you into orbit.
Like Trump.
Yeah. Not a fan, right?
See, in my mind, as like I said, I've been raised up a Christian, and I feel like it's my duty. What I do is I love everybody. I don't care what they are. I don't care if they're black, pink, purple, whatever, Asian, if they're man, woman, or whatever. Even, I mean, humankind in general. You know, they identify with whatever. You know, like you said, the fabric of society has kind of gone just to hell, basically.
Well, hang on. Rather than spin off too far, and indulge me for just a second,
Okay.
I promise I will shut my word hole.
No.
So you're a Christian.
No, that's
Is
fine.
that what you're saying?
I am a Christian.
Daniel, you're
yes.
a Christian.
Yes.
Okay. So you hold to the best teachings of the Bible. So don't bear false witness. You need to tell the truth. Would you hold to that? You believe that's good?
Oh no. I've already blown it. I'm bad. I'm messed up. I mean, that's the only reason I need a savior.
It's a good value to
I'm
hold,
twisted.
right?
My mind takes
Jesus
me places
Christ.
I don't want to go.
Hey, hang on. I'm not gonna go down there is no one worthy. We all have the cancer of original sin and require redemption. The Bible instructs that we should do our best to tell the truth. So that is something that would be a Christian value, would it not?
I would agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Sure.
Good. All right. The Bible says, "Don't take vengeance. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." That's a Christian value, isn't it?
It is indeed.
It is. How about don't commit adultery? Christian value.
Absolutely.
That's a Christian value. How about being meek? Blessed are the meek. Turn the other cheek. Is that a Christian value?
Yeah. You're quoting from that Sermon on the Mount, and
I got you. How about
best
humility?
sermon ever
Right?
preached.
Pride goes before the fall. You need to be humble. Is that a Christian value?
Absolutely, sir.
How about not loving money? Right? The love of money, the root of all evil. Sell all you have, give to the poor, and follow me. Do you feel like the love of money is the root of all evil, and understanding that is a Christian value?
I do believe that the love of money can be the root of all evil.
Root of all evil.
Yeah.
How in the hell are you supporting Donald Trump, who is the antithesis of every value that I just laid out for you? You think he's humble? No. He says he loves money. He lusts after women. He's committed adultery. He takes glee in taking vengeance. He is the antithesis of the best teachings in the Bible. So explain to me your support of Donald Trump.
Okay, we've all blown it. I mean, you've blown it. I've blown it.
No. I'm not talking about someone who stumbled in their lives because they're human.
Donald Trump.
I'm talking about gleeful sociopathy and cruelty, grift, deceit, pride, all of those things. You and I are not in that same camp. Explain to me how you as a Christian support Donald Trump.
We're all sinners, even Donald Trump.
I'm sorry.
Okay, then why not vote? Then why not vote for Hitler? He's just a sinner.
You know, I can't judge Hitler's heart. I don't know his heart. That's the one thing I can't judge.
Oh God,
I
Daniel.
can definitely
I
judge
didn't
his
think you would
behavior.
actually
my
take that bait, but
goodness.
Jesus.
Woo, that's a
But
sentence I did not
you're,
expect to hear today. All right.
I mean,
We're
I
on
understand why your
going into
cousin is
areas.
struggling, and my advice would be that maybe you guys not be hanging out so much anymore.
I will be honest with you. There are people who have supported Donald Trump and continue to, and we don't spend time together. And it's not because we can't disagree politically. It's because what is happening in regard to our current political climate is in such stark contrast to my values as a human being that I don't want to be around people who are in active opposition to the things I care the most about and the people I care the most about. We simply clash in terms of values. And I have made a decision not to spend time with those people because I have more peace that way. So, I mean, I understand you're not talking about a political disagreement. You're speaking about a contrast or even a clash in values. And if that's the case, you two might not want to be buddy-buddy.
Yeah, you just defended Hitler.
Well,
I couldn't be your buddy, to be totally honest.
I think I agree.
Well, actually, that Hitler, that's pretty extreme. I don't. That's a whole nother debate. But
No. Hang on. I'm going to give you an out.
Listen,
I'm going to give you an out. Hang on, and I promise I'll let you speak. Just, I get it. We put you on the spot. Do you feel like we morally can judge Hitler? Hitler was a maniacal, mass murdering psychopath. You and I can agree on that. Would you give me that much?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have judged Hitler. You have just judged Hitler, and doesn't that feel right? Doesn't it feel good?
No,
Moral.
I mean, I wasn't
Feels right.
around. I hate that. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible. Man, there's a lot of stuff in Kings. There's a lot of stuff. It's brutal. It's rough. And it's tough.
What's
and
that have to do with the murder of 6 million Jews? You don't have that in common with Hitler, do you?
No, gosh, I hope
no,
not.
Of course you don't.
Jeez,
You want to know why?
I'm just as bad a sinner.
You want to know why?
I mean,
you are
he's a
not
sinner, I'm
just
a sinner.
as bad a sinner. I'm telling you.
There's
this is one of the
not
reasons
different
I think Promise and
stages.
I speak so strongly against this type of thing. Because what the Bible does is it strips people of a worth identity, of innate value, and says you were born broken, you were born sick, and only Jesus can make you well. And it is that type of thinking that causes people to self-flagellate for sometimes their entire lives over the sin of being what? Imperfect? Of making mistakes? Well, that's just being alive. But it doesn't mean that you should be beating the shit out of yourself over it. You and Hitler, no, you're not even in the same universe. All right? And I think I'm giving you more credit than you give yourself, don't you think? The atheist thinks more of you than you think of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you were quoting some scripture out of Matthew earlier, and I was just glancing at Matthew 14. It says, "For if you forgive others for their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others." So here's what we've done. My cousin and I.
Daniel, that's absolute shit, and you shouldn't be taking advice from it because that isn't working in real life. If you have somebody that says a little white lie to protect somebody, and then you have somebody that kills 6 million, and you have somebody that kills 6 million Jews, there is a massive difference. And to teach children and people in general that that's all the same. It's all the same, and it'll all come out in the wash. That's disgusting, and that does not move us forward.
I don't like Hitler. I'm not a friend of Hitler, and I'm not in agreement with what he done. It's awful genocide. It's terrible. So I don't even want to talk about that. The reason I called in was maybe a little advice, but what we've done, my cousin and I, you know, I'm not gonna. We don't have. I mean, not being together and not being around each other. That's not even an option. I'm a Christian. I'm gonna love him no matter what.
Well, I don't think you love him because you're a Christian. I think you love him because he's your cousin. All right. Yeah. But
But
this idea that
I would love you as I would love you as well. I'm sure if we developed some sort of relationship, we would agree to disagree. I'm sure on a lot of subjects.
If your cousin was
But I don't
Hitler,
hate
would you?
you.
If your cousin was Hitler, would you love him?
Man, that Hitler thing, you're killing me with that.
Well,
That's
that was
so
a person
terrible.
that
I
existed,
can't.
Daniel.
I mean, that's awful. I can't. I can't.
look, the hard fact is
that throws me. You're tripping me up. You're tripping me
I
up
think
with that Hitler stuff.
we love people, but usually, you know, at some level they have to be lovable, and it's still a human thing. I think what we are seeing, though, is the frustration your cousin feels when you profess Christianity, but politically you are holding to the most anti-Christian person who has ever held the presidency. And because that president, Donald Trump, has done so much damage and has abused power to such a degree that democracy and decency nationwide are on fire, you two are having a hard time sharing the same space. Your candidate, in his eyes, is setting fire to the causes and people that he cares about. Well, that's a conversation about values. It's not, hey, we can disagree politically. It's more, you are enabling someone to shred the things that I care most about in this world. And that's a harder conversation. And you two may not need to be in the same space together if it's that intense.
Well, we've made it a point not to be that intense. We are going to be in space together, and we're going to get along, and we're cousins, and I love him no matter what.
So
I'm
just
not
avoid the
beating
topic.
him over the head with the Bible, and I'm not going to beat you all over the head with the Bible. I'm not going to go all religion. I mean,
I wish you'd
know
stop
that
beating
part of
yourself
the-
over the head with the Bible, because as Seth pointed out, you're a much more lovely person than your Bible is leading you to believe, and that's really sad.
Well, no, that's all the Bible did is I just love people no matter what, but I'm instructed to do that. Now it's easy to love my cousin. You're right. I'm related. It's easy to love somebody you're related to. But it's hard to love the unlovable. And yeah, Hitler, can I love Hitler? That's a tough one. I mean, I don't know how I could ever say yes.
Okay, well, let's
I
draw
do
away
know
from that
that
extreme example back to the
I know
candidate
you want to.
that you support. Hang
I
on.
know you want.
I want to draw back
I know
away.
you
So
probably want to
what
get
is it
rid
that
of
is
me.
Christ-like about Donald Trump that you love as a Christian?
I don't think there's anything about Donald Trump that's Christ-like, nor do I think there's anything that's Christ-like about me. I can't. I mean, I love people, but it's hard. It's the ones that are unlovable that I struggle. I don't.
All right, hang on.
I don't
Hang
just.
on. Hang on. So there are not
now
people.
Trump,
There are not people that do their best to tell the truth and that act with humility and try to live honorable lives and do their best to emulate the best teachings of the Bible. Those people don't exist.
yeah, sure they do. Yeah,
They do. Okay.
yeah, and
So, and you
what
can't
love is
name
about.
one Christ-like attribute of the man you voted to the most powerful office in the world? Not one?
Well, I can't say
one.
positive attribute for
Just one.
any of us.
Just one.
I cannot name one for none of us because we've all fallen short. I mean, we've already blown it. We're all messed up,
Jesus
twisted,
Christ.
and
That's
There's
why
not much
the way
I can
you
do here,
think
Promise.
is
I'm sorry.
worthless, because
Here's
then
the deal.
Yeah, Daniel, I
Ask
think
me.
Daniel, I think we're going to move on now
Okay.
to another caller. I think back to our
Okay.
original advice. If you really are just calling in, how do I get along with my cousin? Well, if you are actually trying to follow your religion, it would tell you to be a peacemaker and to, back off. If you don't have convincing evidence, which it sounds like you don't, or your cousin would have changed his mind, then I would just approach him with curiosity and ask him why he believes the things that he does, and try to learn something from him, because that would maybe be
Well,
the way to keep peace there. But otherwise, I don't think we really have anything to help you with.
oh, okay.
You already solved your own
Okay, we can
problem.
end with that then.
You talk about other things and you go and enjoy whatever time you can without letting stuff get out of hand. You draw the line and it seems to work. I say you stick with that. Thanks for calling.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
see you
Bye,
later.
Thank
Daniel.
you. I appreciate y'all taking.
That makes me so sad. That makes me so sad.
Self-flagellation's the only word. Like
Yeah.
I had a neighbor who's a pastor at a nearby church, and he was a super nice dude, and he was the kindest guy to me. He really was, and he was a great neighbor. But I remember we were having a conversation, and he kept saying stuff like that. We're all broken. We're all broken people. You know, we've all fallen short. And boy, it's a good thing we have Jesus and blah, blah, blah. And I just thought he is beating himself up for the crime of being what? For what? I mean,
Existing.
you've made a mistake in your life. You're flawed. You screwed up. So what? And this immediate jump into near worthlessness and I deserve hell or that kind of thing. To me, it's again one of the reasons we do what we do. You and I have a better opinion of him than he has of himself. And the reason he beats himself up for being born broken is because of his superstition. It's maddening, it's maddening.
Yeah. Yeah. And that way of thinking is not helpful either, because if everybody's the same, if I'm the same as a murderer, then morality loses its meaning at that point. There's no reason to even discuss these things or try to better yourself because, well, we're all just dependent on God's grace at the end of the day. And if we already missed the mark just by being born, then why are you even trying to love anybody like Daniel is so earnestly saying he's doing?
Might have been a shade of, it's like if you have thought lustfully about a woman, you're already an adulterer, right? If you thought about killing someone, you're already a murderer because you had that sinful idea. So maybe it's this thought that somehow everybody's got the worst instinct, and that worst instinct, even as a thought crime, makes you just as bad. But to say we are all equally sinners, or I hate the word sin because I don't believe in sin. But, Hitler was a murderer, but, we all have a murderous nature because of the devil is a horrible way to look at our fellow human beings. Oh.
Yeah. Yep. It's awful.
Enhance your calm. I can see how things I've stopped hanging out with MAGA relatives. I cannot be, and this may be a personal failing. I don't want to be in the same room with them because I feel, and this has happened over the past few years. I used to be like, well, maybe I can talk some reason. Maybe I can help them see. Maybe I can show some of the issues. Maybe I can reveal. Maybe there will be a breaking point. Oh, maybe this headline or that tweet or this atrocity or this war or this assault on decency. Maybe this will be the straw that broke the camel's back. And after a decade, I've given up. Maybe there's somebody who can break through, but it ain't going to be me. And I don't want to be in the same room with the people who are right now threatening my right to exist as an atheist in this country. They think it's a nation of Christians, by Christians, for Christians. Everything else, we're under threat. They could pull the plug on us in a heartbeat. And these people and their vote will have been what made it happen. They're going after the people I care about, whether it's LGBT marriage or trans people in the military or blah, blah, blah. I don't want to be around that. And I've taken a hard stand in my own life. Some people would say I'm the intolerant one, promise. I just feel pissed. I feel hurt. I'm grieved. Yeah. That's the word. I feel grieved. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a fair position. I mean, that's how I feel. I like to give people a chance. I like to believe in conversation and dialogue and all of that. And sometimes it works in family relationships, but a lot of times it just ends up, there's already so much going on. Even people that don't struggle with massive disagreements in values and religion and all of that can have different dynamics that they struggle with in family. So I think it's totally fair if you can give it a chance. And then after that, if you have to set some hard boundaries, that is oftentimes better for everyone.
I really do believe that if there is a more, I hate the word divisive, but I can't think of a better word, thing than religion, it's politics. Because I know a lot of people like, we can disagree, we can have a theological discussion about whether or not Jesus exists and whether he loves the little children and died on a cross and all those things. We can have that conversation. But if we speak to politics, often much more than even religion, politics speaks to my values. And when we start talking about our values, these are the things that we care the most about. And that's, I think, I think even married couples or partners who live in the same space, sometimes they will disagree religiously, but they vibe. Hell, Natalie was a Christian when we got married. And now I'd call her more spiritual. You know, she doesn't seem to be as interested in Jesus at all. But it was okay, because even though we had disagreements theologically, we shared values, right? We shared values, and that's how we made it work. But if you disagree on values, sometimes those are like the magnets with the polar, opposite thing, and they just push each other in a different direction. I don't know. I'm just babbling.
No, I totally agree. And I think it also speaks to, because I think that's a specifically American issue, though, because I'm learning, like, over here, there's like 15 choices to vote for, and there's all these nuances, and most of them are already way further left than anyone in the US. And so I'm getting the privilege of not having to take that. But in the US, we've so married politics with religion that it has come down to human rights, just basic human rights issues. And so when we can't agree on that, that to me is a bigger thing. Well, like my friend April LaJoy and stuff, we differ in religious beliefs, but our political beliefs are the same, and that's why we can still work together. So
April is a gem. I got to meet her at NanoCon last year, and she sat down on camera with me for an hour, and we just had the best conversation. And she gave as good as she got. I mean, we went back and forth on some of the stuff that's in the Bible. Yeah. We had kind of a spirited exchange. But at the end of that conversation, I thought I would proudly stand shoulder to shoulder with April in any human rights discussion. I sometimes will jump into her feet and be like, I'm a fan. I'm still here. Keep kicking. Do your thing. And there are those who were like, well, how could you say that to a Christian? And I'm like, well, I tell you, she's one of the greatest humanists that I have met.
Yep.
And so we share values. And I'm a fan. April, if you happen to see this clip, I'm a fan.
We love you.
We love you, April LaJoy.
she's
Want to do
amazing.
this next call? I got a Connor on the line dialing in from
Connor.
Oregon. Connor, are you there? Connor?
Yep, here. Sorry about that.
Welcome to the show with Thomas and Seth. Let's talk. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so really quick, because, I've been listening to you guys, and I think that you have a very negative mindset with regards to this, I am a sinner. So, when the Habsburg emperors got buried, they had a tradition where they would bring the body before the crypt, and then they would knock on the crypt, and someone would be waiting behind the other door, and they would say, God, do you recognize, here lies, Emperor, Franz, and then they'd list as many, many titles. And then the person behind the door would go, no, I don't recognize him. And then they would knock a second time, and then he would go, oh, here lies, Emperor Karl, father, and then they would list all the different, relatives and all the royal family. And then the third time that they would knock, they would say, well, here lies Karl, no titles, poor sinner. And then the person behind the door would say, well, now I recognize him as one of my own. So it is this humility to it, but, you guys talk about it as if it's this very I am worthless kind of attitude,
Connor,
and I just
Connor,
don't find that in the Catholic tradition.
I gotta pause you. Connor, if you're wanting to discuss Christian theology, you need to call a Christian show and discuss that with your fellow Christians, and you guys can all get on the same page about what sin even is, which things are sin, which aren't. We don't believe that a God exists. So we got to start somewhere. Like, you need to convince us that sin is even an actual thing, that there is an ability to displease a God. And in order to do that, you'd have to convince us that a God exists. So that's kind of where we got to start with all of this. That's how we do the show. Personally, I'm not interested in talking theology. Maybe Seth is. I have a feeling we're feeling similarly.
I think my first thought is
it's less theological and more kind of your assessment of
I don't mind
the
going there with
view
you,
that
but
people
understand that I'm simply drawing from the Christian Bible. I'm not making up, there is no one worthy, no, not one. I mean, those are the words of the scriptures. So tell
hold.
me how
Right, but
that's not
it's less
worthlessness.
kind of, well, it's not more like, it's you're kind of giving it this attitude like I'm worthless, therefore like I'm depressed and
I didn't say depressed.
shame on me for these things, and it's less like that and more kind of an attitude where I look at my fellow man or woman or whoever, right, and I think to myself, this person is imperfect. There are going to be things about them I don't like. They're going to have problems. They're going to have what Christians would describe as sins. And that's okay. That applies to everyone universally.
Okay,
right?
hang on.
No one is.
Hang on. No,
Go ahead.
I have to stop at your premise. Why doesn't the scripture say there is no one perfect? No, not one. Why does it say there is no one worthy? No, not one. That's an easy point to clear up if that's what they really meant. That's what God was trying to tell us.
Sure, I don't necessarily identify what to you is the difference
between being unworthy and being imperfect? Well, unworthiness is framed in a salvation narrative which required the ritual torture and murder of a God-man because we were so terrible that God couldn't simply either bring us to heaven or manifest forgiveness and redemption outright. The entire the entire narrative of the Gospels, the entire Jesus story says we are so horrible that God had to be tortured and executed so that there would be a blood atonement to rescue us from hell. Depart from me, you who are cursed, into a lake of everlasting fire and damnation. These are the words of the Bible. So I'm not pulling this out of my ass. I'm pulling it out of the New Testament.
Yeah, I understand.
And so it stands to reason that if we had to be redeemed because we are not worthy, that explains our previous caller who was saying, hey, we're all wretches, man. It's like the song Amazing Grace. He came to save a wretch like me. Well, this is a devaluation of us as sentient human beings, isn't it?
I mean, I think that is, to me, that's like a lot of hubris to think that
Why would it be hubris to quote the Bible?
No, it's hubris to believe that, you as an individual are some kind of, grand being.
I never said that. Who said anything about being a grand being?
How did you just describe, if you're not some wretch, which applies to everyone, right? Everyone is equally.
It doesn't look. Having value doesn't mean that I have overvalued myself, that I think I'm some extra thing. I'm alive. I have innate value.
Yeah,
The universe doesn't care if I exist, but I am not worth less. I have plenty of worth on my own terms. Forgive me, Promise.
No, I was just going to add on to that. Like, even the idea that somebody's perfect or imperfect, what would that even mean? Because who's setting the standard for perfect? So already the way we're trying to measure humans doesn't make any sense to me, because I don't think it's something measurable, because we'd have to all agree on an objective goal or an objective standard.
Yeah, and I agree that that's just not possible. I think more the idea, though, that you're totally worthless just because you're a sinner and a wretch and need to be rescued by God, like you're applying something that is not necessarily implied, which is that you're totally devoid of all value. That's just
let's
not
say
true.
I have a little bit of value, and God still says it's worthy of hell.
And
I don't have enough value to achieve heaven or miss hell. Explain this.
That's like trying to see something that is impossible to see. That's like seeing into a different dimension, right? It's like, so if I'm trying to, it
Wait a
is,
minute.
because you're trying to say, at what point does God value, X or Y or Z, and am I going to get into heaven, if I, adulter one less time or one more time or this or that? Well, it's more about seeking, forgiveness and about, the reclamation of oneself
Forgiveness
through
for what?
Christ and through your works.
Forgiveness for what?
Or, well, you guys listed off the many different sins that are seen, through, I'm a Catholic, so, it's pretty clear what those are in terms of what
It's not. Catholics
church
can't even
comes
agree
out and
amongst
says.
themselves. What? No, because you hear
Well,
different
there is an
things from
official
different
doctrine
churches.
of the church. Whether or not an individual might say, well, I think this or that, well, the official stance of the church is the official stance of the church, and it's not up to an individual.
And it's also changed over time, which is hilarious. Thankfully, it has changed, but it has changed. But I'm asking
bit.
what the fact that it has changed at all is hilarious. But I'm asking, what is there for
Culture
us? What do we
changes.
need what do we need forgiveness for? What do I need forgiveness for? Other than between me and
I don't
whatever
know.
person I
That's
may be.
between you and a priest or God, whichever you decide. But
Why?
nobody goes out into the world and is totally
But Connor,
perfect in every way.
But Connor, I don't believe that a God exists, and I don't believe that I need a priest to do anything for me.
Why do I have to be perfect to be good?
Then
Does someone explain why you keep bumping into the word perfect?
And what
Let me
is
tell you,
perfect?
if there is a wrong that is done, I wrong you. I shafted you in a business deal, or I lied to you about something important, or I just screwed up. Wouldn't it be better for me to come to you and ask forgiveness from you and reconcile with you, human to human? No God's required.
Sure, and you can still do that.
And that's all I need.
Okay. I mean, that's more just about like a personal preference. And one thing I did. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that we don't need the watcher in space. We don't need the all-seeing cosmic eye version of that. Someone does something that
is required to go about through your daily life? No.
No, it's not required for us to do really any of the things that we do. We can make it right with each other, and we can try to coexist in this world, living in pro-social ways. And the idea of sin, it's a non-starter. We don't need it. It's often very destructive, and it robs people of their innate worth. Right? They don't have to be perfect to be worthy.
It doesn't. I mean, I think that what is defined sinfulness, and this is a pre-Christian ideal, is a set of standardized morals, which obviously they have been applied in a Christian tradition, right? But that tradition has differed over the many centuries. Even before the Protestant Reformation, there are many churches which had literally different sets of commandments entirely separate from the Catholic Church. So there is definitely, a larger set of morals that are inscribed not just in a religious context, but in a legal context as well. So
ethical behaviors
can be viewed
that
from,
predate and
it
exist
can be viewed
all
from that
around
as well.
the religion that claims its moral standard. We don't need it. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I don't want to beat the dead horse here, but the truth is, and we can go a lot deeper and say, well, if you're going to source yourself in the Bible, you're going to have to get into the authenticity of Scripture, scientifically, historically, and morally. We'll be here all year. But I'm just saying that we're not, Promise and I are not trying to overstate that the Bible says there is no one worthy. We're not overstating the Bible. We're quoting the Bible.
Yes, but I think that the way in which you're framing it, where that implies this worthlessness in terms of, your
that was the guy we were talking to.
He was the one absent.
We're replying to how a lot of Christians interpret it and behave and act.
And God believes it. God, according to the Bible, holds to that type of unworthiness to such an extent that he will send to hell anybody who does not drop to their knees, beg forgiveness, and ask for Jesus to come into their life. So that's a pretty big deal, right? It's such a worthlessness that if you didn't hold to that and accept the sacrifice, you will be damned. Kind of a big deal. That's not unfair. You are that unworthy. The sheep and the goats, depart from me. You are unworthy. I didn't make this shit up. It's written in the Bible.
Yeah, no, I hear that it is. I mean, I know that it is, but more my point is that rather than ascribing it as humility, and the humility to accept that you are, a sheep or the grape to be plucked from the vine, etc., that you are unworthy of the new kingdom, and that you are, a poor sinner. It's a humility. It doesn't come from a place of
Humility for what?
I'm,
If we're
I'm
all
some worm in the dirt.
But Connor, then who cares? If it's all this, if it puts us all on the same level, then how is it relevant?
The reason that I think it's relevant is because I think that you're prescribing a kind of
literal.
No, it's not. No, it's not that it's
Scriptural.
literal or unliteral. It's more like it's a cultural. You're prescribing something that's culturally not pervasive.
Well,
I
look,
believe
just because
in
cultures have
many
mitigated and
denominations.
watered down and even made Christianity in their own image, I'm just simply quoting from the Bible. And we can go round and round and round. But the truth is, the entire premise of the salvation message is, we are so awful, God had to be ritually tortured and executed to shed blood to atone for us, lest we burn in hell. And these are the core tenets of the salvation message. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying that we should all be perfect. I think if the Bible simply wanted us to act in humility, that's all it would have said. I think if it was talking about perfection, it would say there was no one perfect, no, not one. So, we can't beat each other up for quoting the Bible for what it says. And if somebody else wants to make a God in their own image, let's just admit that that is what they're doing, okay?
What do you mean by that last part?
I think people distance themselves from the literal scriptures of the Bible, the specific black and white claims, the ink on paper claims of the Bible, whatever version they happen to be using. And I think they distance themselves from the literal Bible because they want something that speaks more to their values. And in that way, they are making a Christianity in their own image. So for you,
I see what you're saying.
it doesn't speak to unworthiness. It speaks to, or unworthiness in terms of maybe humility. That's the lens through which you want to see it. Okay, great. Whatever. That's not biblical Christianity.
That is the lens of the Catholic Church as its teachings.
Who cares?
But Connor, we don't care. That's what I'm trying to explain to you and what I said at the very beginning. I came from a denomination where I was taught to literally pray, more of you, God, less of me. I'm worthless. I'm a worm in the dirt and all of that stuff. And the Bible can be interpreted that way very easily because it is so easy to twist and turn and take whatever way. It's not consistent. It's not a good source for truth or reality. And so that's why I'm telling you, if you don't like our framing, then you should go call up the Christians that are calling in and telling us that they're worthless and they're on the same level as Donald Trump and murderers because, we're all the same. We're all just sinners in the hands of an angry God. So then you need to take it up with them. If you want to cherry pick it and you want them to cherry pick the way you're cherry picking instead of the way they're cherry picking, then you guys need to all figure that out together. A couple of atheists aren't the answer to your problem.
No, I was simply, you guys were talking about it as if that is that's the majority position, and it's not. It's in the minority position.
No, we weren't. And also, I don't know that you have anything to back that. And so,
well, there's more
we're
Catholics
responding
than
to
there
the person.
are of any other denomination combined.
You're upset. Hey, I don't like that you read this part of my storybook and that you're stating it that way. We don't believe any of it's true. So I'm sorry that you don't like the theology that two atheists are going with. But again, it's a really weird bone to pick.
It's not that. It's more your guys' framing, right? And I understand from your own
Connor,
personal
you're the one
background that was your
reframing
experience.
this. You're trying to make me think that the word wretch could ever be anything other than a negative thing.
I mean, it can't. I mean, it's negative. I mean, obviously, but people do a lot of negative things. I mean, is that not pretty much the entire story? Is people doing stuff that they really probably shouldn't be doing, and that's why
I don't think that
only son?
Makes that somebody's identity. I don't think that people. First of all, we'd have to all agree on what standards somebody needs to meet and moralize every single thing about their life, and then sit there and judge it. That sounds insane. I don't need to do that. So I can look at the general choices somebody makes and how much they harm or don't harm others around them and say like, oh, cool, I appreciate those choices. Or I don't like those choices. I don't like the things that they're doing here. I do like this. I don't feel that it hardly ever is handy to identify somebody as a wretch or as a good person or as that. I think people are
well,
people,
you already
and they
are
make all kinds
prescribing
of
that
choices.
people,
And there are certain people that I personally would say have committed such atrocities that I would say, yeah, that's a wretch. That's a terrible person, and I don't think they're redeemable in this time. It's just not going to happen. But that's my subjective take, using morals that we generally agree on. But still, this idea of because the moment you're born, you're a wretch, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And to try to reframe it as a positive is crazy.
And this idea that, oh, well, there's a shit ton of Catholics, therefore, oh my, well, let's say it was an argument from majority opinion. Fine. I'm not going to concede that. Argument from authority. No, I'm going to concede that. But if you put Catholics in a room, ask them which parts of the Bible are literal, which are metaphor. How do you interpret this? What's your position on everything from gays to contraception to heaven and hell and the end times and everything else? I mean, Catholics are just as divided as everybody else. There is an official doctrine
of the church.
So, all right. I appreciate your call, Connor. I don't think we're going to get much more in terms of productivity out of this exchange. I simply am quoting the Bible, and you can interpret it differently, but it doesn't change the text. And if the text is wrong or unclear, the onus is on God to clear things up. Okay?
The church is pretty clear about just about everything, but I hope you guys have a great day, and God bless.
The church is clear?
The church is not clear because there isn't even one the church. If the church was clear, there wouldn't be all kinds of denominations. That's such a ridiculous thing to say.
I always like to see the breakdown of the major denominations, right? God is not the author of confusion. Okay, well, are you a Southern Baptist, an Independent Baptist, you're a Free Will Baptist? How many hundreds of splinters of the Baptists? And then you've got the Assemblies of God, the Pentecostals, the Episcopals, the Lutherans, all of the, wait a minute, hang on.
The Catholic Church itself just had to excommunicate a certain church group that another pope was apparently fine with, and then they got a little too heretical, and then they decided. So it's just,
Promise, do you draw from the KJV, the NKJV, the New American, the New American, the Revised New American, the Living Bible, the Message Bible, the Concordant Bible? I just think it's just a comedy, and everybody apparently is using the right one, and the other people are wrong. So I guess we're just using the wrong translation.
And being a wretch is no big deal. We shouldn't.
You think about baptism. Die to yourself. Baptism by immersion. The symbolism is you die and have to be raised anew, a new creation. You are so bad that the symbolism is you must die to yourself. And that is rooted in the Bible. Don't tell me that the Bible doesn't strip people of their worth, and that these teachings damage people often for the rest of their lives. And so to minimize it in this way, for me, is really problematic. It doesn't say what it says. That's a problem. It either says it or it doesn't, right? Anything else you want to throw in before we go to Ken on the switchboard? Promise.
Let's try a new.
What time is it where you
caller.
are? Aren't you close to midnight? Your time?
It's almost 11 p.m.
Right.
my time.
Yeah.
I got an hour left in me.
All right. Ken, Ken, are you there? Ken, you're on with Promise and Seth. What's going on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. What's up? Let's talk.
Boy, can I relate to you guys, because that was my attitude for 55 years of my life.
What attitude was your attitude?
I thought if you believed in the Bible, you had taken leave of your senses. That it is so contradictory. It's so confusing. It's so irrational. And now
we were also both. So just to give you a little background, Ken, we were both Christians for a long time. So we also know what it's like to believe, and we understand some of the reasons that are behind belief. So I'm more interested in why you apparently didn't believe in the past and why you believe now.
Well, my father gave me an NIV Bible, and I would try to read it with my engineering mind, and I wanted to throw it across the room because of all these contradictions and all these illogical things that are all throughout. And so things changed dramatically. In 2008, I had almost 30 years with Lockheed, working on many fighter programs. That was my life, was engineering and science and testing. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. And but I get my layoff notice in 2008, and I needed a shoulder to cry on. And the F-35 program was global. All right, UK, Italy, Australia. I had my Rolodex, just dozens and dozens of people in over the decades, right? And I thought there's only one name that I had a shoulder I could cry on, and it was a manufacturing engineer from 13 years before. And I'm like, why do I want to talk to this guy named Lee? And Lee eventually got me to go to Bible study fellowship. It took him 4 years, but for 4 years I complained. If God so loved the world, go ahead.
Well, let me just ask you real quick. If somebody had presented you in that time, if your friend that you went to, if he had given you the Quran to read instead, would you have been interested in that?
I don't know. I could just tell you what happened, and it's just
that's fine. You can go ahead and share that story. We'll try to keep it not super brief, but let's stay on track. Yeah, go ahead.
So I would bring up these logical fallacies of John 3:16. God so loved the world, He gave His only Son. Okay, He knew He was going to get Him back. God knew He was going to get His Son back in 3 days. Okay, is that such a big deal? And Lee would just say, okay, he's like a father figure to me, and that irritated me even more. And then I said, He could make as many sons as He wants. He's all powerful. Why should this make an impact on me? And today it makes an impact on me. And
so I understand that you ended up with Christianity, but what made you even open to the idea that a God exists?
It was a game. It was an orchestration of not just Lee, but another engineer. And these 2 engineers that eventually worked on me didn't know each other. It was just a spiritual orchestration that it still blows my mind to this day.
And what state,
And
or what city or state were you living in at the time?
Texas, Fort Worth,
Right.
Texas.
And so the majority of people in Texas are Christians. And then these two guys
Yeah.
happen to also be
Yeah.
proselytizing Christians. And you, again, I don't understand why you believe that a God exists, because the reason I don't believe the Bible is primarily because I don't see any evidence that a God exists. So I'm not interested in the Bible or the Quran or any other religious text claiming that a God exists until we actually have reason to believe that that's true. So I'm less interested in your personal testimony of how you were emotionally moved, and you were clearly at a moment of desperation. You were open to something. You were ready to believe something. You were in need of something, and then you're in a very Christian state. I assume you probably already had grown up hearing. Well, you did say that your dad had given you a Bible and stuff, so you were already ready to be a Christian. You were kind of like prepped for it. So to me, it makes perfect sense that you would end up becoming a Christian. I'm curious why you believe that a God exists.
Yeah, but you don't know how hostile I was to Christians. Okay?
But
No,
Ken, I don't
was
care.
very
I don't care.
hostile to
Wait,
Christians
you don't have
growing
to,
up.
you don't have
my
to
whole
preface
life.
it by telling us how much of a skeptic you were, or how
Yeah, that doesn't
angry
mean
or how
anything to
dismissive
me.
you were. That has nothing to do with
I
Promise's question.
Are you familiar with Bart Ehrman?
Yes.
Misquoting Jesus. He wrote a wonderful book
But
called
Ken,
Misquoting
but Ken,
Jesus. Yes.
Ken, I'm curious if in this call you are going to be able to answer my question, which is why do you believe that a
Well,
God exists? Not why do you believe
I will.
Christianity, not how mean were you to Christians.
Okay.
Why do you
Okay.
believe that a God exists? Because if a God exists, I would like to know that as well.
Okay.
And I'm
Okay.
hoping that you have some information to offer me to where or somebody listening, maybe it's not
Okay.
me, maybe
I'm
you
going to
have the
speed it
information
up.
to help somebody that is trying to figure out what is true or not. If it's true that there's a God, I want to know that.
I'm going to speed it up really fast. That every year I got invited to Bible study fellowship because I respected Lee so much as a father figure. I would take off work and go. And I told him, I see you smiling Christians understanding a book I cannot understand. And it's like you guys are on the interstate going 100 miles an hour. I'm on the service road. I can't even find the entrance. There's no way I'm ever going to believe this. There's no way I'm ever going to believe in God. And this is the end of 4 years, right? I owed him an excuse or an explanation, and each time I painted myself into a corner.
So Ken, I
Okay,
got to interrupt
I
you real
was
quick. I
plagued.
kind of have an allergy to testimonies at this point because I had to sit through so many of them for 25 years of my life. And I've heard ones that sound a lot like yours before. I get it. It's beautiful. It would probably work on somebody who is in a similar place to
Okay.
where you were at the time, where they're desperate to believe. I want to just talk to you here and now. Ken, you actively right now believe that a God exists. I don't want to know
Oh,
this
without doubt.
emotional story of what happened and this and that and the other, because I don't even know if you're just making all of this up. I want to know what's a good reason for me or Seth or anybody listening to believe that a God exists.
I just know I had an experience that changed my life. I could never go back on this one night in September of 2012. I could never, ever live
So
my
you don't
life.
actually have reason for us to believe that a God exists.
I had a reason because I had a spiritual
No.
experience
Is there
at
a
the end
reason?
of which
Ken, is there a reason that anybody other than you should believe that a God exists?
Okay, here's the thing. I was in this experience. It's as if God reached down.
Okay, Ken, I got to stop
To
you
my
again.
brain.
So you said that you used to be a skeptic like us and you thought like us, but now I'm doubting your entire story because you're not sounding like somebody who has ever actually had to present this information to somebody asking questions. This doesn't sound like something that you've approached with skepticism at all, because as a skeptic, I don't know if you're making this whole thing up. I don't know if you just had a high fever one day and you've made up this whole thing and you've lied to yourself about it happening?
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes.
So I'm asking,
My
is there
wife.
anything other than this experience? Like, is there a reason that the people listening here should be convinced that a God exists? That's not a personal
To-
story of yours that requires us
key.
to.
Here are the keys. There are 3 keys. Key number 1 is to be humble. Key number 2 is to accept what you might be given. And then the most important key is to put your logical brain. This is a stumbling block. You're using logic. You're using an earthly brain to judge things.
Ken, that's
And
the
you need
only
to put
brain
that
I
in the
have.
corner.
That is
yes,
the only
it's
brain I
uncomfortable.
have. That is the way
Yes, I know,
that
I
is what
know.
gets me through reality. That's what helps
I
me not
know.
die every day, is by
I know.
relying on logic and this only brain that I have.
That
Tell me why your
yes,
God decided
yes.
to only reveal itself when I dumb
It was
myself down and go against
yes.
facts and against basic
No,
reality.
you
Explain
don't
that
have
to
to
me.
dumb yourself down, but a tiny amount
If
of
you want me to
desperation
stop
is
using my
required.
brain, then I do have to dumb
Yes.
myself down.
You just have to put your logical brain in the corner for 1 minute.
Let-
And,
let-
Ken,
and
this
it
is
doesn't
Can I
hurt.
jump in
I
depressing.
real
promise
fast?
you, it
Please,
does not hurt.
please.
You must be a little
Yeah.
bit vulnerable. That's
No,
the
no, no.
nature
There's a
of
difference
God.
between being vulnerable and being receptive and doing what the
Yes,
Bible commands, which is to trust not in your own understanding. Well, it's
exactly.
called faith.
Exactly.
It's called faith because it's not knowledge. And Promise and we want knowledge. And so let's say that you and I are at a
Mm-hmm.
table and a Muslim comes and sits down next to us, and he's got a story that's a lot like yours. I had an
Okay.
experience. Allah appeared to me, and I had something that is transcendent, supernatural, and I now know. I was the biggest skeptic of Islam. I thought it was a bunch of crap. I was hostile to Islam, but you know what? Allah proved himself to me. Would that be enough for you to take the Muslim's word and accept Islam as the true religion?
I don't know. All I know is that it is a magnificent world. It is you find the
Hey, Ken,
answers
I'd really
to
be
a lot
interested.
of life.
I'd really be interested in you answering Seth's question. I think it's a great question, and I would love to hear you answer it.
And what
He
is
took
it?
it on faith. He had a personal experience. It was beyond him. He's going with it. Therefore, true. Islam is true based
So
on
should-
that he's
right,
using
so
your
should we-
model.
Should we listen to you, or should we listen to him? Which one should we listen to?
Yeah, who's got the right religion?
You should find your own.
I did. They both sound equally ridiculous to me, and so I don't believe either of them.
All I know is my life was changed. He wrote his name in my bones. Okay.
Oh shit! Here comes somebody from a third religion, and they sat at the table and they said they had a transcendent experience that they can't explain, that's beyond the rational mind, and that makes them convinced that a different. So now we've got another God. How would I know the difference between your God and the Islamic God and the third party God? There's so many gods. How do seekers of truth find truth?
You're using your logical brain again. You know,
Ken?
I don't know all the answers. I can only tell you what happened to me, and it's just transformed my life.
Ken, if a Muslim calls us and says, "Just stop using your logical brain, just have faith.
No,
Allah is the one true God. You just got to let go. Just stop getting in your own way."
No, you're misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding me. It's for like one nanosecond.
Well, you're telling me not to use my brain. Maybe that's part of the problem. It's hard to understand people if you turn your brain off.
All I can tell you, these are the keys for me. And it may be something for other people. I don't know. This happened to me. And it's just, life is so much more meaningful. Life is not about money.
Ken, you're just preaching.
Generosity.
Ken, you're preaching now, and you're not offering any substance.
I like what you said about being allergic to testimonies. I think I may have that allergy. I feel a strange itch.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
developing a
not.
rash. Ken, we're going to move on, but thank you
Okay,
for
bye
the
bye.
call. And I hope you will consider some of the scenarios that we have placed. If somebody of a conflicting ideology, religion, philosophy, whatever, some supernatural, well, let's leave it in the supernatural, says, I had a personal experience and that therefore it's real. We ask ourselves, would we not want to use our logical brain to try to discover if that's true? And if we can't substantiate it, do we have a good reason to believe it? But I wish you the best. Thank you so much for calling. I had a personal experience. I've heard this. I had someone take me, this was years ago, take me to lunch trying to convert me back to the faith. Earnest. And I could tell, first of all, I knew a shit ton more about the Bible than she did. And it was all like she literally broke into tears. I know I was there and I felt the Holy Spirit and it was a supernatural moment. And I wish I could express to you, Seth, how much I know that it was real and God is real and how he loves you. And it was just, she was super earnest. And I'm like, well, I get that you believe, but I don't hear any good reason for me to believe. And I think you're right. What kind of a benevolent, reasonable deity would say, all right, I'm going to give you a functioning cerebral cortex, but I want you to not use it, but instead play dumb and let me do the reasoning for you. Then we're easy meat for anybody who's got a crazy claim, right?
Yep. Really poor planning on that God's part. But maybe he is just a bad planner. That would explain some things.
Promise, I've met Jesus and he loves you so much. Loves you so much. I don't know why I go into the Southern accent, but everybody around here, when they start talking Jesus, they go into that kind of a cadence. I've got Aaron dialing in. Ooh, another call from Texas, which is also known these days as Gilead. Welcome to the show, Aaron. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing, sir? Nice to meet you, and nice to meet you, ma'am.
Hey there.
Oh.
So you wanted to call in to say we should be a Christian. Why do you think we should be Christians?
This is gonna sound dumb, and I hope y'all don't skip me, but I kind of just picked a random topic. I wanted to just talk to y'all, but the screener said I had to pick a topic, and I didn't want to get skipped, so I kind of picked that one.
Well, we are happy to direct the conversation. So are you a Christian?
Yes.
Do you think other people should be Christian?
Definitely. I would love all to be Christian.
Okay, so you think Christianity is true then? You think there's a God, he's got a son Jesus, he died on the cross to save us from our own sins that we were born with, all of that?
Yes.
Okay, why do you think
Yes, all the
all
basic
of that
tenets.
is, yeah, why do you think all of that's true? Why are you convinced that
Well,
Christianity is true?
Well, it's also something that I've been growing with and learning more. But my basic reason, I do believe that if you take revelation out of the picture, that philosophically and logically, that God is coherent. And not only is it coherent, but I feel like when we look at reality and we look at how people operate, that I believe that there should be something grounding it objectively, not just morality, because I know atheists and agnostics don't like that, but reality itself and seeing logic and seeing fine tuning, I believe that there is something bigger. So I believe that if there was a God, it would be something that have to be able to withhold the whole universe and to be what they would say all powerful out of space and time. And then when you look at all the religions and see what would be able to be compatible with that, I believe the monotheistic ones sound best. And then I look at the three religions and I feel like Jesus truly is the Messiah. I feel like the evidence and the people that gave their lives for this religion and how historic and many documents there are, that I find it to be very convincing. And
Hey,
even
hang on.
myself, I
Hold
feel
on.
like that
Hold on.
connects
Hang
to it
on.
as well.
Hang on. Hold on. So I am hungry, but I am not hungry for word salad. So I want to drop back to the beginning of your call. Did I hear you just slice the last book of the Bible out of the Bible? You just took the book of Revelation and went, gone? How do you think God would feel about
What do
that?
you mean?
You said it with, if you ignore the book of
Maybe I don't
Revelation,
understand.
it's coherent.
Yes.
So how do you think God would
Book of
feel about you
Revelation.
just taking the last book of the Bible and just chucking it?
Are you presupposing that Revelation is inherently incoherent?
Oh, I think I think it is wildly incoherent. It is a fever dream. There is not enough LSD in the world to, if I was to take it, even I could not have come up with the book of Revelation. No. But you just removed it from your scenario. I want to know by whose authority. If you are a Christian, you just took the 66th book of the Bible and discarded it. How do you think God would feel about that?
Well, you have a few things that you stated wrong. First of all, because you don't see it as coherent doesn't make it objectively incoherent. And I believe in 3 books. I'm Catholic.
So if I'm reading about things like the whore of Babylon, who is riding down on a beast, right, with 7 heads carrying the cup of abominations, I should not look at the idea of a 7-headed dragon riding space prostitute and think that's incoherent. Is that what you're telling me?
I could sympathize and see why you would think that, but
I can see why I would think that too. 7-headed dragon riding space prostitutes are incoherent in the real world, are they not?
I mean, and I find that to be, you're missing out. There's many of things that are very symbolic in the book that would be very hard to understand. There's nothing wrong with that.
God then has purposefully made that book, which you discarded, but we're somehow back to quoting from as helpful source material, rather than speak plainly. God, who is not the author of confusion, wrote confusingly about the 7-headed dragon riding space prostitute carrying the cup of abominations. Is that what I'm hearing?
What I'm saying is that there are many things in life that I would argue are more confusing than that. That does not mean that it's incoherent. Incoherent meaning that there's no sense to it. If you really spend time to read Revelation, which I've read the whole book.
Oh my God, you did
symbolic,
not just tell me that Promise and I have not read the book of Revelation. Did you imply that?
No, sir. No, sir. I'm saying that I've read it. Look, hold on. I know y'all are the host. I'm not here
read it.
I'm not here to personally attack anybody. I'm not here to say that y'all didn't read it. Y'all might be better than me. I'm talking about myself. So I want to get that right off the cuff. I'm not here to attack you two. I just want to talk.
So now you brought Revelation back. So have we reattached Revelation to the Bible? Did we grab it and tether it back in? Does it now belong?
It is, of course it belongs.
Oh, okay. All right. So now we have all 66 books cohesively. I'm sure Yahweh will be delighted. Forgive me, Promise. I just wanted to make sure I knew which Bible we were drawing from today.
66 is incomplete. It's 73.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think he's Catholic, so I think he's going to say 73. So
I see.
There's extra.
I see.
Yeah, really exciting. Okay, what I'm more interested in is when you
can I
were
address
talking
what you said, or is it rude to
No,
interrupt
because
you?
I'm going back to the beginning. So there were so many massive leaps, and so I'm curious, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that Christianity is true?
10.
Okay, and how? Because when you described at the beginning, maybe I misheard you, but you were saying when you look at the world and all of this, and you were going with the fine-tuning thing, you were saying it seems like you were using a little bit more vague. You didn't seem as convinced that a God exists. You were kind of making these leaps. Like, well, then I would think there has to be this, and then I would think and then I would say it's this, and now, bam, Catholicism. Like there was a lot of leaps. And so I don't know if you're interested in filling in some of those gaps.
I would like to, but the reason that I kind of rushed it is because I've talked to fellow hosts like you before, and they say what the sir said, the guy that just talked, that it's word salad. So I try my best to be, I guess, intentionally short on my explanation, because some people don't like when I explain myself too long.
Okay, then I have some other questions for you. Maybe we take this another direction and maybe we wrap the call up. I don't know. But I'm curious if there is this God and it's the Christian God, And it's very apparently important for us to all believe that this God exists. Why did he make it such word salad? Why did he make it so difficult to believe? Why did he make it so unbelievable? In fact, every year that goes by, it becomes less and less believable because we have access to more and more information.
I would say that you got a wonderful question. Do you two believe, and I know I'm asking a question, if you don't like it, I'll answer directly.
Go ahead.
Do you believe that just because something is hard to understand, that therefore it is falsified?
Nope, not at all. I'm just asking you for your opinion. Just like why do you think a God would basically require belief from us, and he would know when he's creating us which ones of us will and won't end up believing? Creates all of us anyways, meaning he knows that he's created some that will go to heaven and some that will not go to heaven, depending on what you believe in your, whether you believe in hell or what you even believe hell is. Anyways, there's some that God has basically destined that are his chosen ones and some that are not. And if you look at a lot of Protestants, they would say that Seth and I are going to hell. And I will tell you that God created us knowing in advance that's going to happen, and he decided to create us anyways. Why do you think this God went with this like really weird plan and then made it so difficult for us to believe him, to where you call in, I'm going to assume the best and say earnestly to try to help explain it to us, but it's so difficult. Why?
I believe that it shows the intricacy of the all eternal God. It shows that you could have thousands of years, many millions and millions of words, so many authors, and it somehow all connects. That shows the amazingness rather than the difficulty.
But
I can look at a very difficult math problem,
but
or I
that's what
can
I'm
say
saying.
it's a beautiful solution.
Maybe you're misunderstanding me. My point is, I don't see that. I don't see the intricacy or how beautiful or amazing or the connectedness at all. I see chaos. I see the complexity and complicatedness of this whole entire story and belief system to point to it being man-made. Not a God, to me, would make way more sense. The more intelligent something is, the more it makes sense, the more it fits reality. And yet we have this thing that just doesn't. Nothing's adding up. And I'm just curious why, like this hidden God thing, why do you think God is just so hidden and makes it so difficult for people like us to believe that he exists? Because if I was a God and I thought it was important for people to believe that I exist, if I thought their life would be better if they believe that I exist, well, I would do everything in my power to make sure that they had the information that specific person needs in order to believe.
Of course, and I don't think what you're saying is crazy at all. I guess I would ask, what do you see, or what does the other host see that makes it so wrong and disconnected and man-made?
I don't
What do
know.
you
I
see?
assume an all-knowing God would know. An all-knowing God would know exactly what I need in order to believe. It would know that better than I know it. So why did it choose to create me this way instead, to where I'm genuinely unconvinced?
Would I say that God created you intentionally to be unconvinced? I wouldn't go so far as to say that every, I don't want to say flaw, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, man, but everything that within you is inherently God's fault. I'm not going to say that. But we don't know. If I reverse engineer it, maybe someone like you is needed in this world, or like the other co-hosts. We need people that ask the great questions and see the difficulties of God. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think we're all meant to be just dumb,
but let's ask
and
a
God
few
just
questions.
appears and that's it.
Do you think that my life would be better if I believed that God exists?
Better as in your salvation spiritually, yes. I don't know if God would make you feel comfortable more mentally or anything like that.
That's
I can't
fine.
answer that.
In general, according to God's standards, would it be better that I believe?
Yes. It would be better for you spiritually.
And when
yes.
God was creating me, when God decided I'm going to create this human, even before that moment, did God know if I'm going to end up being a believer or an unbeliever?
Being outside of space and time, yes, God at that very eternal instance knew you would have or had not made a decision.
And so if I end up in hell someday, did God decide then, when he was creating me, that I would be a creation that would go to hell?
Did God send you there? Like, oh, I created you for the purpose of putting you there, or just the knowledge of it?
Well, if he had the knowledge, so that's like asking me. So right now, if I could snap my fingers and choose to have a child, and I am all powerful in that way, and I can choose to either have a child that is going to hell, have a child that's going to heaven, or not have a child, and I can control all those things. Do I not choose? Am I not the one that decided that that kid was going to heaven, or if they're going to hell, or if they're just not going to exist?
Not necessarily, because then it would contradict human nature. The
human
purpose
nature has
of
already been
humanity.
contradicted by this God being all knowing and knowing everything about us before it creates us.
Well, it could be if you take it the wrong way. Let me tell you why. Humanity is eternally willed by God to be temporal, to be finite, and to have free agency. So when you have all those components, God willed for the ability for you to make a mistake. That does not mean that God eternally willed for you to make that mistake. Oh, I want you to make it.
But Aaron,
you're going to go to hell.
You're
I
following
foreknew
me.
it. I'm making you go there.
But Aaron, if
I
that
don't
God
believe that.
decides to continue, if that God decides to move forward with creating that creation, knowing that it's going to use its free will to go to hell, then it has still decided that it's going to hell.
So, okay, I guess I got another question. Do you believe that it would have been...
No, hang on. Why would God create a being he foreknew would end up tortured in the fires of hell?
I was going to answer the question, sir, which you interrupted.
You were going to ask me another question. I want you to answer before you move on. God foreknew if he does this, you are going to be tortured forever in hell. But he creates you anyway when he has the option to just skip it. So why does it create a being that he foreknows will end up tortured in hell? And don't you dare say free will.
Well, you already have a few logical inconsistencies in your statements, sir. Like God, as if God is making decisions. He is decision. It's pure act of essence. So you're saying he could have skipped and said, I don't really like this fellow and not make him.
Hang on just a second. So God doesn't have agency, but he is predestined because he is decision. It will automatically happen. Is this sort of some sort of an auto decision? God says,
no, I never said.
I will do this or I will not do that. By the way, God speaks like this throughout the entire Bible. God foreknows that this child will end up burning in hell. He has the choice to not create that child and skip the torture outright. But he makes the child anyway.
Okay.
Does that make logical or moral sense?
I'm going to ask you a direct question, sir. Have you sat down and philosophically, logically tried to see how God ought to be? Have you done this? Yes,
Jesus Christ. It's a Philbro. This is a Philbro call.
Aaron,
what do you mean?
I'm
What
disappointed
do you mean God
that I
ought to be?
It's not about
Aaron,
Philbro. You are. I'm trying to have a conversation, and you're coming in here laughing.
No, you're not,
You're
Aaron.
trying to
Aaron, you're not trying to have a conversation because I got to a point and I made a really good point, and you couldn't deal. You had to respond with a question.
I haven't had a chance to answer. I cannot answer.
But you had to respond.
I will answer. I will answer you directly with no questions if I'm allowed to.
We're still waiting on the answer to a basic question. A God that can do anything, that knows everything. Why would that God create a being, a child he foreknows will end up tortured in hell if he makes it? Why would he continue?
Because, are you ready? No laughing, no interruptions. God foreknew that you were going to have this situation. He created you as the fullness of a creature that could make a decision that is good or bad. It is perfectly good for that. You are willed by God to exist. God desired her and God desired you to exist eternally.
Aaron, I don't know if this is just
existence gives the Well, hold on. See, I told
No, no,
you
no.
we're not going to be able to
No, because you're
continue.
wasting your own time because you've either deeply misunderstood me or you're being dishonest. So I got to stop you either way. I'm telling you,
I'm not.
the situation I'm expressing to you is that God knows whether that person chooses it or whatever you want to say the excuse is. If you want to say it's free will, whatever. God knows that that person is going to end up in hell and chooses to create them anyways. What do you think about that?
Well, God knows you chose to go to hell.
And then
He knows
allows
you
me to
chose
do
it.
it and could choose to not create me at all, or could choose to create me with my brain just slightly tweaked so that I find it slightly more believable and don't end up tortured for all of eternity when I didn't even consent to existing in the first place. So why does this God think it's a good idea to be like, well, that's what she wants, so I got to make her and send her to hell even though she doesn't believe it exists, so this is her choice. Do you not you've got to hear how ridiculous that sounds.
Well, first of all, there's a few things. You would not be going to hell so lightly. You're thinking automatically you're already screwed. Was the Lord presented to you properly? Was your mind fully convinced and knowledge
Aaron,
wasn't there?
I don't
Who
care
said you're
what
going
the
to hell?
reason is. I don't care. If there's a person that's going to be tortured for eternity, meaning it is never ending, the rest of their life, like just endless torture.
Okay, all right.
And a
Perfect. I have a
God
question. Do you
decides,
have
and
children? Look, do you
a
have
God
children?
decides you do not want to do that one with me.
No,
Do I?
no, let's do it. Do you have, no, listen, hear me out. It's going to be good. I
Aaron, you
want to
cannot
just say it.
compare a human
If,
that does not have full control, that does not have all power, that does not have all knowledge, to a God choosing to create something, and you cannot choose a temporary life that has some suffering. We all know that's going to happen,
well,
compared to
yeah,
an eternity of suffering. Because I will tell you 100%, I already thought about this when I was a Christian. I had decided when I was a teenager, I am not going to have kids because if there is any chance that this child will burn in hell for all of eternity, that's horrible. I'm not going to risk that for them. So, yes, I have already thought about this. Eternity is not the same thing as temporary life. There's literally no comparison.
okay, I could understand that. I wasn't even going to say anything about hell. I was going to say, I don't know if the other co-host has a child or not. People know that this child, let's say I would like to have kids one day. I shouldn't have these kids because
Aaron, this is a
they're going to
waste
get
of a
sick.
point.
They're going to fall. They're going to get
Temporary
hurt.
life,
No,
Aaron, temporary life is not the same
what
as
is better?
eternity.
Okay.
Nope. If somebody's not going to choose to have a kid if they know that there's a chance they will suffer for eternity, that is different. The only people choosing to do that are
Then no one
Christians.
should be
And I'm
born by
trying to
your
figure
logic.
out why your God does that. Why does your God, who does not have to do that, choose to do that anyways? Why does he damn people to hell? He creates them for the purpose of going to hell.
I mean, I would argue that there's multiple possibilities of you being in heaven and being in hell. There's many logical possibilities. It's
Let's
just the
move
choice that you made is what led you there.
Good. Do you fly to heaven or hell on the seven-headed dragon riding space prostitute, or did I get my stories complete? Did I mix them? I may have mixed them, blended them. Aaron, thanks so much for the call. I hope you have a wonderful day. We are going to move on, okay? Woo! Free will. I knew it was going to happen. You wouldn't call it that. But there's this whole, it's a completely bullshit position. Why would God create me if he foreknew I was going to end up in hell? Free will, which are two totally different conversations. But even the free will argument totally falls short. If God cares enough, he would know exactly what it would take to convince me. And he would make himself so abundantly clear there would be no ambiguity and no question, but I would still be making the free will choice to follow God.
Right.
So I make a better decision when I have better information. And mysterious ways, God uses the foolish things to shame the wise, who hath known the mind of God, etc. The more vague God makes himself, the more of a sadist he looks like. Because with heaven and hell in the balance, clarity is our friend. I get better information, I can make a more informed free will decision. The entire free will position falls flat on its face. Okie dokie. I've got Jared, who has been most patient. Jared, let me hit the right button and get you live. You are global with Promise and Seth. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you guys?
Welcome. Let's talk. What's on your mind?
I don't think that atheism, in terms of how it's typically presented, is any more coherent than Christianity. And I don't think that atheists that criticize Christianity have much of a leg to stand on.
Jared, I'm concerned you might not know what atheism is. So let's make sure we have an understanding there and then we can move forward. What do you think an atheist, like if I say I'm an atheist, what does that mean? What does that tell you about me?
We're not going to pin it down into silly logical abstractions.
We are.
We're going to go
Jared,
with what the
Jared,
real,
an atheist,
the real
Jared, an
context.
atheist is an atheist is someone that doesn't believe a God exists. That's it.
Okay. So when you're an atheist and you come on this show and you assert all kinds of things about Christianity, is that intrinsic to your atheism, or is that a separate position that you hold?
It's my personal. So if I'm asserting anything on the show, that has nothing to do with atheism. Maybe there's some overlap, but atheism, the word atheist just answers: am I a theist or an atheist? Do I believe a God exists? Do I not believe gods exist? So we're atheists, and we also have varying. Like I don't necessarily agree with everything all my co-hosts say, and they don't necessarily agree with everything I say. So atheism is not like this club where we all believe the same stuff. It is not the opposite of Christianity.
Wow, that's very convenient. It sounds just like when you pin down Christians on something that's harsh in the Old Testament, and they say, my denomination doesn't interpret it that way, but the other denominations
it's
do.
Not
and you see how that's
it's not
the exact
convenient.
same thing?
It's Jared. If you chill out, I'm happy to explain some stuff to you, and then you'll have a better understanding, and then we can have a good conversation. So an atheist is somebody that doesn't believe a God exists. A theist is someone that does. Are you making this assertion about theists as well? Oh, that's convenient. No, because it's not supposed to answer anything else. You can ask us, if we let you ask us questions, about our specific worldviews, if we're nihilists, if we're superstitious, if we're, whatever it is that we might believe or not believe about the world, that's different, because the atheism is not supposed to answer any other question other than if we believe a God exists or not. Just like theism isn't answering if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Hindu, it's answering just the question of if you believe in a God or not. So this is not about convenience or anything like that. Trust me, becoming an atheist was one of the most inconvenient things that ever happened to me. That's not, I don't use the term because it's convenient. It is massively inconvenient, as is being demonstrated. If you want to talk about something specific, you can ask a question. We can go there. But I'm more interested in what you believe and why.
Oh, that's not how debate works when you post an assertion on the internet.
Jordan, welcome to the show. We're the hosts. This works exactly how I want it to work, or the call ends. So you can either agree to our terms, or we can let you go.
Christianity or not?
Nope, and I muted you. So no, we're actually not here to criticize Christianity specifically. We're here to have conversations with theists. The Sunday show is where we bring theists on and we say, what God do you believe in and why? And we give you an opportunity to convince us of what you believe, or at least convince the audience if you can't convince us. This video can go out and be shared with other people. It already sounds like you don't want to have an honest conversation. I'm happy to give you a chance, or maybe you want to call a different show. Maybe this isn't the show for you. So let's try again. Jared, what God do you believe in and why?
I'm a Christian. That's what I believe in.
Awesome. So you believe in the Christian God. Why do you believe that the Christian God exists?
I'll go into that in just a second, but I just want to point out that this whole argument you guys make only works when
You've been muted. There's no argument that's been made. I'm telling you how the show goes. I'm telling you how the call can go, and you can either go with it or we can let you go. So would you like to tell us why you believe Christianity is true?
All right, I'll say I think Christianity is true because I think that the fundamental narratives in the Bible are the most innovative reflections of reality that we have as far as human appraisal of reality actually works.
Cool. So if you were given a text that you felt explained reality better, then you would change your mind?
I mean, yeah, there's always the possibility that you can change your mind if the worldview that you hold is just totally dismantled and proven definitively wrong. But as far as Christianity goes, I don't think that you can offer a more coherent argument. And I think that there's several little nods throughout the understanding of reality that we get from Christianity that give us a pretty good indication that it's true.
Can you give us one?
Sure. So the entire good evil distinction that we modern people use to appraise morality is a Christian innovation. Atheists have to use it without turning into Hitler or Stalin. Christians
Hitler
use
was a
it
Christian,
because
but go ahead.
yeah, I mean, he was, a Jörg von Liebensfeld Areo Christian who took the Bible and, twisted it into all kinds of weird positions, which you
So
can
when he wrote in
do,
Mein Kampf
but
that he was doing the work of the Almighty God when he massacred the Jews, and when he had alliances with the Catholic Church, that was just political. That wasn't true Christianity. It only works when it fits your specific model. When he put Gott mit uns, God with us, on the belts of the SS officers, I'm sure that was just a political move as well. But I think what we're asking you is this, right? Good, evil is not a concept indigenous to Christianity. It's defined differently by many people within Christianity. And are you basing it on what? A literal Bible? Adam, Eve, Noah's Ark, Esther,
Right. And
Ruth, Samson, Jesus, etc.?
The concept of good and evil also was introduced earlier than the Bible's existence, so through other religions, since that's just been happening throughout humanity. But yes, please answer Seth's
I mean, are
question.
you a Bible literalist? Is the Bible true? You're a Christian. You believe the Bible?
yeah, I believe the Bible is true.
So Adam and Eve in the garden?
I read that symbolically based on the rabbinical scholarship that reviews the Iron Age literature. So true in the sense that it conveys the underlying meaning of what actually happened, but using symbolism to illustrate how that works. Because, of course, they're writing in 700 BCE, describing something that happened in 6,000.
All right. So you are consulting the rabbinical literature, which means you needed a book to explain the book. Is that what I'm hearing? Like the Bible wasn't enough for you. You had to have a book that explained the book because God did a shit job in the first place. So you had to go to the external literature. And then your interpretation will disagree with thousands of other interpretations about what those texts actually mean. And what symbolism would Adam and Eve in the garden and the fruit and the talking snake, etc., what would that symbolize anyway? What do the days of creation mean? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What do all those things symbolize?
Humanity choosing an ontological divorce with the indwelt grace of God so that they have the ability to determine the value of actions.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. I just needed a second to replenish the oxygen, which was sucked out of my skull. So how do you determine which part of the Bible is metaphor and which is literal? Like the Hebrew speaking donkey, was that metaphor or did that really happen?
Generally speaking, when you do biblical exegesis, you want to look at who was writing it and what time, what were the literary traditions that they used to communicate meaning.
What?
Who wrote the book Genesis? You want to talk about exegesis. Who wrote Genesis? Who wrote that and how do you know that?
The common historical scholarship puts Genesis written in the Iron Age between about 1000 BCE and 500 BCE.
Okay, so what you've just admitted to me now is that a book that was chronicling a truth which begins before space-time, when no humans existed, was written by a human around 1000 BCE. Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the basic facts of
Yeah.
the case if you read
Yeah,
history.
facts of the case. Okay, well, I'm glad you said the word fact because now I'm convinced. So we have someone who existed around 1000 BCE who wrote down something, a chronicle of a truth which precedes space-time before all humans existed. How did that author come by that knowledge, I wonder?
By a
Exegesis?
intuitive, heuristic
Intuition.
snapshot of life. Yeah, well, that's how humans appraise truth. It's the same way that atheists derive their morality. So I don't
I'm
see how
not
you can
talking
use
about
that as the
morality.
basis
I'm
Jared,
talking
for.
you've
about
got
a
to let
supposed chronicle
you,
of history.
yeah, you've got to let go of the atheist thing because atheists don't all agree on the same ideas about morality. So just let that go and address your beliefs.
The author of Genesis, was he living in a
That's
tiny little
exactly my
pod
point.
which predated Adam and Eve, and he was sort of floating around in the void before space-time, and he had a pen and parchment, and he was writing everything down? Like, how did he come by this factual information?
I don't think that he came by factual information in the same way that, a scientist would derive factual information from the scientific method, if that's what you're asking. But human beings don't derive meaning that way. So that's kind of a ridiculous litmus test.
I'm sorry, where did the source material come from is a ridiculous litmus test? Where did the source material come from? How do we know that? And is it credible? That's an
We don't
unreasonable
know exactly
position.
where
That's
it
an
came
unreasonable
from,
series
but
of questions.
the way that you just framed it is not unreasonable. I would say that looking for where source material came from is reasonable, but determining whether or not something is credible based on whether or not you can obtain the source material, that is a
No. That's a
unfair
different question, but they are
assertion.
cousins. Promise, forgive me. But I was hoping
No, please.
that I could find out how somebody who lived at 1000 BCE, who he has not yet named, it may be Moses, I don't know, didn't ask, a human being wrote shit down, chronicling something that happened which begins before space-time. Who was that person? How did they know it? And how can we know that they knew it? These are reasonable questions.
You can't know that they knew it. That's not possible.
That's convenient. So we can't know what we are supposed to know, or I can't know what you are now positing as some kind of truth, the Christian truth. That's bizarre to
You
me.
can know the
Promise.
Christian truth. You can know it because you don't appraise reality with
Which, Jared,
post-enlightenment
real quick,
rationalist logic.
Jared, real quick, which
I could demonstrate this easily if we stop with the reductionism.
Jared, which particular brand of Christianity is your favorite flavor? Are you a Protestant? Are you Catholic? Which one are you?
Which brand of atheism is your flavor? Do you like the Marquis de Sade, or are you a
So you can't
how do we
answer.
say secular
So
humanist?
Jared, you can't. So Jared, you're incapable of having an honest conversation. You can't answer a very basic question, which is just to try to figure out exactly which branch of Christianity you are so that we can better understand whatever point you're trying to make. And you continue, like you started at the very beginning of the phone call, to just make this about us because you're obsessed and this is fan behavior. And I don't want to talk to fans today. I'd like to have an actual intelligent conversation with somebody who can offer up evidence for their God. Is that going to be you or no?
Oh, it's going to be me, but
Ready,
if
go
I
then. So let's.
if
So
I have
which
to answer,
can you
if I have to answer
please let me
questions that you
know?
don't have to answer, we're not having much
Can
of
you
an honest
can you
conversation.
when you want to start writing my paychecks, then you can decide how I host the show. But you're not doing that. This isn't your channel. This isn't your show. This isn't your job. This is my job. This is what we do over here. I'm asking the questions. You're welcome to tune into one of my lives sometime and you can go ask questions over there. But that's not how this goes. This is not actually the Promise and Seth show. This is the We Talk to Theists and Try to Get Answers from Them show. So can you just kindly please share which denomination you would consider yourself to be a part of? Because Christians all don't agree on most of these little things that you're wanting to get done. Like a lot of the things you're saying, the way I grew up, the pastors around me would 100% disagree with what you're saying. So I'm just curious which denomination you're a part of.
I'm going to reject that question because I'm not interested in
Goodbye, Jared. Do you want to talk to him anymore, or can we let him go?
No, I think, no, let's encourage Jared to go plant his own tree to perhaps replenish the oxygen, which was stolen for us.
That was
very combative. Now, it's true. I will admit that I do tend to amuse myself with some of these calls when I sense that there's some of that, those little slivers of sarcasm and accusation in the tone of his voice. And I don't take it all that seriously. So
Yeah.
I hope that was not inappropriate. But I don't think, there were some who say authorship isn't all that important when we debunk the Bible, but I think it can be debunked or attacked or at the very least analyzed and criticized on a number of different levels. And I think who wrote the book of Genesis and how do you know that? Because it's the foundational book of an entire religion.
Pretty fair question.
I don't know why. Then if you say, well, a guy who lived around 1000 BCE wrote it, and I'm like, well, how the hell could he know what was going on? Because he wasn't around at the time these supposed other things existed that he wrote down. How could he know that? And then somebody instead turns it on us and says, well, what's your worldview or whatever it was? You atheist. I don't know. It's maddening.
Yeah, that very annoying. And also, I don't understand why it's so difficult for theists to understand that atheism is the opposite of theism. It's not the opposite of Christianity. So that's like me. I'm genuinely asking him what denomination he's part of. And for some reason, he didn't want to answer that. I can kind of
I think he was
guess
making up
why,
his
but-
own thing. I think he just made this weird niche Christianity that, that exists in a box of his own creation. That's just a guess.
Maybe.
But it sounds like he had kind of outsmarted himself as far as, well, this Christianity is going to mean this, and that part of Christianity is going to mean that. And therefore, I've literally I think he kind of molded his own religion if he was, in fact, a legitimate believer. We got 9 minutes. You want to take this call?
Should we?
Dylan?
Yeah,
Dylan,
let's try.
welcome. You are on with Promise and Seth, the final call of the show on the line. Welcome. What's up?
Hey, Promise Seth. Just calling in to tell you about my experience and having been an atheist for several years after growing up in a church and then returning to faith, just based on some of the observations I made and listening to what a lot of theists told me and how I came to a logical understanding of why the existence of the Christian God is true.
Well, I agree with
Promise.
Promise. I have an allergy now. I admit I have an allergy to testimonies, and you don't have to preface with, well, I used to be an atheist, but now. Just tell us.
Yeah, because we've got
what,
8
when,
minutes.
where, and why.
So also,
Gotcha.
Dylan, real quick,
I'll just
I
say
hate
because
to.
of the logical principle of non-contradiction, and that something can't come from nothing, and that the Christian God exists outside of space and time, allows him to create the universe and the uniformity in nature throughout space and time. God being the force that governs all of the physical and material world.
What? Well, you could say that about any God. Anybody from any religion could come and make a series of claims about the nature of the God who started whatever. So what? Can you demonstrate any of that?
That would be the preface for the existence of a spiritual being or a spiritual dimension.
Well, those are claims, but you haven't provided us any evidence.
The evidence would be that the world exists. And that
okay, well, I think the world was created by purple space octopus, and the universe exists in a giant snow globe sitting on the mantle of Santa's house, and I just know it in my heart. So disprove that, right? It's a claim, but I can't do anything with it. So tell me how you know.
Because of the existence of the universe, and
something
there was nothing
exists
at one point.
Something exists.
We don't know. Also, whoa. Did you just say there was nothing at some point?
Yeah, that is. It's a popular empirical materialist belief that at one point
I don't necessarily agree with that. So I have no idea. I don't know what happened before the things that we know that happened. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't understand why you're taking the leap to therefore there's a God. And then we end up with the
Well, I would say
problem of where did the God come from?
right, but if God is outside of space and time, he has no beginning and no end.
Well, how do you know that? Well, what if it's a God that did have a beginning and will have an end? I mean, that's an assertion, but you have nothing that you don't base that on anything. What requires that God is infinite?
Well, he tells us.
How does he tell you?
Well, he tells us through his word, which is given to us in the 66 books of the Bible.
Okay, so now we're back to the God of the Bible and not a deistic first cause watchmaker deity. Okay.
Yes, I would link the two between the watchmaker first cause God and the Christian God through historical evidence and all of like human literature and excuse me.
You root that in the Bible.
Yes.
And historical evidence.
Yes.
Tell me what historical evidence you have.
Third-party historical literature about events that occurred during the time that the Bible occurred, and through archaeological evidence describing the people and places that existed during the time of the writing of the various books.
Was it Matt who used the argument, but this was back, I want to say, so does that mean the existence, if something existed within the stories of the scripture, does that mean the existence of the Empire State Building in New York proves Spider-Man?
No, it's just an evidence point that leads towards the credibility of the source.
And we don't know who wrote any of those books, and they make wild claims about 900-year-old humans, Hebrew-speaking donkeys, giants, sea monsters, supermen who gain power based on the length of their hair, super babies who grow up to become bloody meat piñatas to rescue humankind from the very Hades that God created. You think all those pass the sniff test morally, scientifically, and historically?
Well, a lot of those inferences of those books are taken from, like you're saying about Revelation, when John wrote Revelation was based on a vision that he had. So it's just his depiction of his dream. So based on the literary style of each of those books that are telling the story, that whatever story you're describing, is how we can interpret whether it's either historical narrative like most of the Gospels, or whether it's more of like whether it's like epic
Dylan,
poetry.
How do you know when you're interpreting something the way God wanted you to and when you're not?
Based on the literary style.
How do you know that that's true? How do you know that that's what God wants you to interpret it as?
How do I know if God wants me to interpret a poem as a poem? Or
Yep.
like an epic poetry as epic poetry, or historical narrative as historical narrative?
Correct.
By the fact that he inspired whoever it was to write it that way.
How do you know? How do you know that he inspired them? How do you know that they weren't making it up?
Because it is consistent with the other books that were written over the span of like 10,000 years.
How do you know that wasn't them strategically, humanly planning to do that, to be consistent, because they were intentionally doing that? I don't even agree with you, but I'll just give you that. How do you know that it was 100% a God that inspired them and not a human conspiracy?
Because the likelihood of a human conspiracy is as absurd as it being like completely fabricated.
How do you know that?
Because in order for people to conspire across like 5,000 years of history is like impossible.
They would just have to read each other's work, right? And then count on people like you now to be so over gratuitous with your interpretations that you ignore inconsistencies and project prophecies where there aren't any and claim that things came to pass and then ignore the times when it didn't.
I don't think you could come to that conclusion based on whether or not this specific thing has happened or not, because neither of us have the evidence to determine whether or not that our interpretation is correct.
But if we don't know, that calls into question God's competence in explaining it. And is it reasonable to believe that Bronze and Iron Age authors chronicling sea monsters and blood magic were telling the truth, or if they were products of a superstitious culture that simply didn't know any different? Dylan, we're on the clock and we're out of time. Thanks so much for the call, but we are going to move
back.
On. All right. Wow. I didn't really understand the responses. Is it just me? I mean, granted, I'm a little slow today.
I think we just weren't getting very many. Who do we have on after this?
It's calling it now. Is it Jovan and Austin? Am I saying it right? I don't know if I've met Jovan.
Yep. I got to host with Jovan on Monday, and it was really fun.
And then on the line after dark is Aaron Adair and Matt Dillahunty. Promise Backlund, it is always good to see your face and hear your voice. And I'm always honored to get a chance to co-host the show with you. So it's good to hang out.
The feeling is mutual. Thanks, Arden, for producing. Thanks, mods, everybody hanging out in the chat. Don't forget, before you move on, to like, subscribe, all the things, and stay tuned for the next show.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
There's supposed to be names here. I don't know why they aren't scrolling. I'm sorry.
Thanks to
Imagine your name right
to
there.
nobody for the show
there,
today.
Yeah.